Chapter 36, An Invitation from the Dragon Clan, Part 2. That's right. We indeed plan to cross the Transmigrated. Prime Minister Kach Loi Min answered for Loi Dik Tam. The So Tian's recent expressions had made the old Prime Minister no longer see him as a raw newcomer to officialdom, but rather as a cunning little fox no less shrewd than himself. The reason for this, I believe Lord Fat Lap Dik Nac also understands. The Transmigrated was not just the shortest route, but also the safest. On this vast mire stretching for 10,000 li, there were no signs of human activity, only endless dangers. Ground forces could not operate, and air forces attempting a surprise attack from above against someone with a Sutha squadron, like So Tian, in this terrain, was basically impossible. Prime Minister, I understand. Everyone was intelligent, so Tian did not waste any more words. But at this moment, it was Dat Mani who added a remark: why not go around the Ai Nisam kingdom? The relationship between Ai Nisam and our country is very good, wouldn't going there be the safest? After speaking, Dat Mani smiled triumphantly, thinking he had finally offered a constructive suggestion. Lord Dat Mani. Tap Nap was anxious, seeing that Lo Dik Tam had lost patience, so he explained, the route through Ai Nisam is too far. If we go there, the chance of being ambushed increases. Based on the environment and geographical location of the Transmigrated, only the Beast Race's Air Force could timely intercept Fat Lap Dik Nac, but the Beast Race's Air Force is absolutely no match for our country's Sutha squadron. Oh. Is that so? Dat Mani blushed, sighed, and nervously glanced at Lo Dik Tam, not daring to say anything more. Miss Sich DM. I still have one question. So Tian noted the unusual address. He couldn't believe that this beauty in front of him was that red giant dragon. What exactly is wrong with the Dragon Emperor? One should understand the situation before diagnosing a patient. But this small question from So Tian did not go as he wished. Zich DM said indifferently, this is a secret of the Dragon Clan. You will know when you reach a Kolap mountain. Praising the goddess of life, seeing that Zich DM refused to disclose, So Tian maliciously thought, they don't even dare to mention the symptoms, could it be an embarrassing male illness? Thankfully, So Tian only thought this to himself. If Dragon Emperor Aloy Tu Thok Duk knew So Tian's thoughts, he feared the entire Dragon Clan on the continent would immediately chop Marquis Fat Lap Dik Nac into 100 pieces. The matter settled, Lo Dik Tam began to issue commands. Fat Lap Dik Nac, prepare tonight, and depart early tomorrow morning. Leaving a day earlier reduced the chance of being ambushed by one part. Yes, Your Majesty. Your humble servant can depart at any time. So Tian needed no preparations. He didn't know how to use the priest's tools, and his veterinary tools were all in his magic ring, so this time So Tian would go to a Kolap mountain empty-handed. Boy to DAC, immediately select the most elite Sutha squadron. It must be ready before tomorrow morning. Suthu were also magical beasts, so naturally, they fell under the responsibility of the great beast minister Boy to DAC. Boy to DAC received the order and withdrew. Lo Dik Tam then turned to Ma Kwa Lai, Old Marshal, command the 4 legions on the border, before Fat Lap Dik Nac reaches a Kolap mountain, close all airspace of our country. No forces or individuals from any power are allowed to pass. Lo Dik Tam took this matter very seriously. The previous order would clearly temporarily cut off the smuggling route of the Fan Mat Tu family. It was known that doing so would result in a considerable loss for a major shareholder like him. The orders continued, Ba Lai, seal off all information. Besides those present here, anyone who knows Fat Lap Dik Nac's departure route will be killed. Anyone? Lo Dik Tam's order startled So Tian, who hastily asked, Your Majesty, may I tell Satlam Na? Such an important matter, not even his wife could be told? That includes Satlam Na. Lo Dik Tam said without hesitation, but he was very pleased that So Tian still remembered Satlam Na at this moment. It seemed that his little sister alone could ensure Fat Lap Dik Nac's loyalty. Meaningless performers, heartless emperors. Chu Tian suddenly remembered an old saying from Earth. Sat Lam Na was merely a pawn in Lo Dik Tam Das hands. If his lack of magic ability were exposed, it would surely lead to big trouble. At this moment, Chu Tian felt his desire for strength suddenly more urgent than ever. Your Majesty! May I bring a few retainers? My butler and my pet. Chu Tian wanted a little extra precaution for this trip to a Kolap mountain. Ba Bak Tat was a magic god who researched poisons all day, so he had some understanding of healing, and AK-47 could ensure safety. As for Xiao Bai, Chu Tian couldn't bear to leave it alone in the imperial capital. The pet can come, as for the butler. Lo Dik Tam looked at Chu Tian meaningfully, smiling. If possible, try to find a way for the Dragon Emperor to restore the magic power of the magic god Ba Bak Tat. He seems to be from our Kaisa, doesn't he? After speaking, Lo Dik Tam scrutinized Downey. Although Kaisa allowed nobles to have their own bodyguards, if their strength reached the level of a magic god, Lo Dik Tam couldn't help but think more deeply. Praising the goddess of life. Chu Tian secretly glanced at the intelligence chief, Ba Lai, standing in front of him. This fellow's work efficiency was truly high. Ba Bak Tat's true identity had been hidden by Chu Tian, yet the old man still managed to uncover it. Chu Tian forced a smile and said, I also had this intention in bringing Ba Bak Tat. My servant and I will certainly dedicate ourselves to your Majesty's great ambition of dominating the continent. I must remember that sentence. Dat Mani thought secretly. How could he not manage to say such loyalty-expressing flattery that could put His Majesty at ease? Lo Dik Tam was also very satisfied with Chu Tian's words, chuckling, whatever you do, I am very confident. There's no rush for Ba Bak Tat's matter, the most important thing is to cure the Dragon Emperor. Seeing that Lo Dik Tam was no longer making things difficult about Ba Bak Tat, Chu Tian felt relieved. No wonder people said being friends with a king was like playing with a tiger. Befriending the emperor was indeed too dangerous. Speaking of danger, Chu Tian remembered Downey glancing at the prime minister standing in the third row. Chu Tian was very suspicious. Although all signs indicated Downey was the most likely person to want to kill him, and Duc Coq had also shown his powerful strength, these were all Chu Tian's speculations. There was still one biggest question, and Downey had no reason to kill Chu Tian, as up to this point, the two had no conflict of interest whatsoever. Forget it. Chu Tian thought to himself. Even if Downey liked to kill him, now that he had snatched AK-47 from Duc Sam, the enmity between him and Downey was over. After returning from a Kolap mountain, he would play with him again. The next day, before dawn, Chu Tian led a large contingent of people, stealthily leaving Bongboi City. This time, the person specially assigned to protect Chu Tian was a flying knight named Tap Dac. Tap Dac's strength was not truly formidable, he was over 40 years old and had only reached the level of a third-grade Black Iron Knight. However, in terms of commanding magical beasts, he possessed a superior innate talent. Under his command and training, the Sutha Squadron had become the Empire's most elite air force. Also accompanying them were 3 7th-grade magic masters. Besides protecting Chu Tian, they had an even more important mission, to supply energy for the Taebok Lam airship. This time, Chu Tian was sitting in a flashy but camouflaged military airship. Beneath the more than 200-meter-long oval sphere, 16 iron chains hung down to suspend a 100-meter-long teardrop-shaped airship cabin. The entire exposed exterior, especially the 16 chains connecting the body and the sphere, were imbued with protective magic. The bow and stern of the cabin were also equipped with 2 crystal magic cannons. More than 10 Suthu of the squadron flew around the airship, scouting the surroundings, while the rest sat in the double-layered outer cabin. If enemy figures were spotted, they would be immediately released to attack the enemy. Looking at the Taebok Lam airship and the way the Suthu were integrated, Chu Tian's eyes widened in astonishment. What outdated technology did the Huan Thursday Continent's Air Force possess? It was like a mothership that Earth had yet to invent. Chapter 37, Not So Unlucky, right? 3 days later, So Tian's Taebok Lam airship had left Kaisa's airspace and entered the Transmigrated. The interior of the airship had been camouflaged. The original storage compartment for logistical supplies had been converted into a spacious and luxurious room. The large room, which could accommodate dozens of warhorses, now looked very empty. Even AK-47, with its massive body, seemed much smaller here. At this moment, AK-47 was cradling several jars of exquisite Fu Site wine, its face beaming with satisfaction, as it knelt to serve Xiaobai wine. It looked no different from a son attending to his parents. So Tian treated his magical pets very well, spending hundreds of gold coins daily on AK-47's food and drink. In a few days, it had visibly grown plumper, its face becoming even more captivating. But AK-47 quickly discovered a problem. In Marquis Fu La Di Nua's household, the highest-ranking individual was not So Tian, nor Babak Tat, but Xiaobai. When it was astonished to find that all the servants' wages were managed by Xiaobai, and that Xiaobai's daily expenses were even higher than its master's, AK-47 completely transformed into Xiaobai's devoted attendant. Hee, boss, try this wine. AK-47 saw a jar of wine emptied by Xiaobai, hastily bowed, and poured Xiaobai another type of wine. This is the wine master specifically brought for you. The huge size difference between the two pets created a stark contrast, as did their attitudes. Xiaobai lazily took a sip, then frowned and knocked over the bowl, calling out unhappily meaning, after so long, you still don't know the boss's preferences, how can you serve like this? Seeing that the boss didn't like this wine, AK-47 quickly replaced it with the Fu Site wine nearby. Boss doesn't like this one? Then drink Fu Site. After saying that, it filled Xiaobai's bowl to the brim. This time, Xiaobai was very satisfied. It plunged its head, which was even larger than its body, into the bowl. After a few gulps, the bowl was empty. Burp, Xiaobai let out a belch, its small, white face flushed crimson. Showing great satisfaction with AK-47's improvement, Xiaobai patted its collar, causing a few gold coins to fall out, which it then indifferently handed to AK-47. Hee. Thank you, boss. Having received its service fee, AK-47 became even more diligent and enthusiastic, pouring streams of fine wine. Meanwhile, So Tian was by the window, admiring the scenery outside while conversing with Babak Tat. No wonder His Majesty chose this route for me. There's no way anyone could ambush us from the ground here. So Tian pointed to the mire below the airship and said to Babak Tat. Indeed, boss. Babak Tat also changed his way of addressing So Tian, as So Tian preferred to be called boss. This made him feel a bit like he was back on Earth. The Transmigrated spans 1,000 li. Every inch of it is filled with lurking traps. Once stepped upon, even a high-level professional would find it hard to escape. Oh? Then how did you manage to persevere after your injury last time until you were rescued? So Tian was a little curious. Babak Tat had definitely crossed the Transmigrated without issue before his injury, but after his magic power was sealed, how could he escape the fate of being bogged down in the Transmigrated? Boss, do you remember when I talked about the battle between the Hellbone Dragon and the Golden Dragon King? Babak Tat reminded him. Of course, I remember, I understand. So Tian also recalled. Babak Tat had said that before the Golden Dragon King used its seal, it had unleashed a fire attribute forbidden spell, destroying heaven and earth. Under the power of the forbidden spell, the entire vast mire was scorched into cracked, dry earth. Babak Tat was lucky to have fallen onto that dry land, which allowed him to survive. Then when will we pass through that area? So Tian wanted to witness the power of this forbidden spell with his own eyes. Even the mire was scorched dry, that place must still exist. I've asked Tap Dac, and he said we're about to pass over it. Saying this, Babak Tat suddenly pointed out the window. Boss, look, we're there. Following Babak Tat's pointing hand, So Tian looked out. In the black mire, an area stretching for more than 10 li appeared. The temperature in this environment was very high, making the dry, cracked land appear exceptionally distinct. Ba Back Tat, go inform Tap DAC to land there. I want to take a look. Boss, let's not go down there. We're taking this route precisely to avoid ground ambushes. Ba Back Tat tried to dissuade So Tian's impractical idea. A large, flat expanse of land like that was like a natural battlefield. Who knew if there were ambushes there? It's fine, very few people know about this plan. Who before So Tian could finish, he heard a mournful cry. At the same time, Tap DAC rushed in, Marquis, alert. The Sutha scouts ahead are under attack. So Tian knew what was happening, the sky outside darkened, and on the horizon, layers of red clouds suddenly rose from the yellow-black. Looking closely, no fewer than 1,000 first-grade Huawei Diao were flying towards them. Huawei Diao were similar to eagles on Earth, but their power was much greater. Although they were only first-grade magical beasts, their only technique was to project fire from their tails. But the most terrifying thing was their sheer numbers. Over 1,000 Huawei Diao arriving together was like a dense red cloud covering the entire sky. Lord, it must be wild Huawei Diao looking for food. Tap DAC, seeing the chaotic, disorganized flight of the approaching Huawei Diao, said confidently to So Tian. Wild birds? Alright, Tap DAC, go command the Suthu in battle. Also, call for 2 idle magic masters to provide support. If they were wild Huawei Diao, So Tian didn't need to pay much attention. Over 1,000 was a large number, but So Tian had over 100 Suthu. A 4th-grade Suthu dealing with 10 first-grade Huawei Diao was very easy and straightforward, so Tian was confident of victory. Tap DAC, having received the order, immediately pulled out a magic communication stone and began to command the battle. Of course, this expensive communication stone was not his, but a standard issue on the Chi Bai Lin airship. The center of the airship targets the flock of Huawei Diao. Magic cannons prepare, commence attack. Tap DAC shouted through the communication stone. As Tap DAC finished speaking, the airship vibrated slightly, then its magic cannons began firing. Boom! With a loud explosion, a fierce round beam of light shot towards the enemy. In an instant, a large hole appeared in the red cloud. Airship's left flank, all Suthu immediately depart. Suthu on the right flank prepare for battle. Seeing that the magic cannons had disrupted the enemy, Tap DAC launched the main air force, preparing to begin aerial combat. The main door of the left cabin fully opened, and Suthu, each taller than a human, steadily rushed out, then formed a 1 formation in front of the Huawei Diao flock. Attack! Tap DAC shouted loudly. The communicators in the cabin immediately signaled, relaying Tap DAC's order to the Suthu. The Suthu formed a line, then charged like a dense, long black blade. Upon impact, the red cloud was severed by the blade. Then the blade split in two, beginning a battle of slaughter against the opponents. TSK. What a sight! Looking at the Huawei Diao continuously falling outside the window, So Tian clicked his tongue in admiration. Large-scale aerial battles in World War II on Earth must have been just like this. But the command method was too backward, it still required communicators to signal. Thinking of this, So Tian suddenly remembered the three-dimensional warfare of a certain country on Earth, each soldier equipped with communication devices, relaying orders to every corner of the battlefield. When I have money, I will definitely build such a magical beast army. Just as So Tian was immersed in his future dream, the battle situation changed. The Suthu, rapidly gaining the upper hand, suddenly found their formation disrupted. A series of red shadows broke through their defensive line, charging straight towards the airship. It's getting exciting. See you tomorrow, everyone. Chapter 38, Aerial Battle. The battle continued. With victory seemingly assured, everyone appeared relaxed. So Tian and Ba Back Tat enthusiastically watched the Suthu and Huawei Diao clash outside the window, while AK-47 continued to lavish Xiao Bai with attention. Only Tap DAC, nervously observing the battle, calmly directed the fight. Although the number of Huawei Diao was vast, their strength was too weak against the 4th-grade Suthu. Typically, several to a dozen Huawei Diao would swarm a Su Thu, but they could only leave a few scorch marks on their opponent, while they themselves would immediately be torn to shreds. The luckier ones would only have their necks broken and fall from the sky to their deaths. The battle lasted for more than 10 minutes. The Huawei Diao had lost over half their numbers, while the Su Thu had barely lost a few. Seeing that the general situation was decided, Tap Dac, considering Chu Tian's safety and also wanting a swift victory, ordered all Su Thu on the right flank to sortie, forming a solid defensive line between the battlefield and the airship. Just as everyone thought the exciting part was about to end, the battle suddenly changed. The remaining Huawei Diao abruptly abandoned their opponents, reorganized, and formed a spearhead formation, thrusting straight towards the airship. Marquis, the situation is not good. Seeing the change in the Huawei Diao, Tap Dac hastily explained to Chu Tian, Huawei Diao have very low intelligence. They cannot organize into such a structured formation. There must be a master commanding them from behind. A master is commanding them? Does that mean the enemy might still have reinforcements? Chu Tian said thoughtfully. Huawei Diao were present in the air forces of various countries, but because they were only first-grade magical beasts and did not understand human language, they were very difficult to tame. In battle, they were often used only as cannon fodder. Wild Huawei Diao also frequently attacked humans, especially in desolate places like this. At first, Chu Tian and his group merely thought they encountered wild Huawei Diao and didn't pay much attention. But now, after the Huawei Diao had suffered more than half their casualties and still continued to attack, it could only mean that there was someone commanding them from behind. Moreover, to make Huawei Diao form such a battle formation, the commander must be a master. If he was a master, he would certainly not use the lives of several hundred magical beasts to play around. This was clearly a battle with an intention, so there must still be reserve forces behind them. Thinking of this, Chu Tian immediately gave orders, order all Su Thu to immediately retract their defensive line. Inform the two magic masters to be ready for support. AK-47, you go help too. Chu Tian's order was too late. The number of Huawei Diao was still very large. Under their suicidal attacks, dozens of Huawei Diao had already rushed around the airship. What shocked everyone the most was that these dozens of Huawei Diao charged straight towards the airship's airspace, and moments later, all of them self-destructed. This suicidal attack brought about terrifying power. A violent air current was generated in the airship's airspace, causing the airship to sway as if it would fall. Although the magic masters supplying fuel gave their utmost effort, the airship continued to fall. They want our airship to crash. Ba Bak Tat shouted loudly, quickly, have the Su Thu protect the airship's airspace. Tap Dac also thought of this and hastily ordered a portion of the Su Thu to fly towards the enemy to prevent them from self-destructing. Most of the Su Thu had flown out, and immediately the airship stopped falling. But there were too few Su Thu tasked with preventing the Huawei Diao from self-destructing. Just at this moment, dozens of eerie black shadows suddenly appeared within the overwhelming red cloud. Due to insufficient numbers, the Su Thu could not block them in time. These black shadows then rushed to both sides of the airship, beginning to attack the iron chains suspended from it. 6th grade gargoyles? It's the Beast Race's Air Force. Tap Dac cried out in alarm, then frantically reproached himself, I was so foolish, they played me for a fool. Chu Tian's opponent this time was not just a master. First, he made the Huawei Diao disguise themselves as wild beasts, making Chu Tian and Tap Dac drop their guard, leading them to deploy all their Su Thu for a swift victory. Then, after all the Su Thu were out, these disguised Huawei Diao would launch suicidal attacks, intending to force the airship down. To prevent the airship from crashing, Chu Tian and Tap Dac would naturally send a portion of Su Thu to intercept the explosions. And at this very moment, the true killers, 6th grade gargoyles, would appear. Chu Tian's opponent truly wanted to shoot down the airship, but not by relying on the Huawei Diao, but on the gargoyles. The strength of a 6th grade magical beast absolutely could not be underestimated. Although the more than 10 gargoyles were not large in size, their power was terrifying. An iron chain reinforced with defensive magic was ferociously chewed through by the gargoyles, snapping in an instant. Moreover, more and more gargoyles were flying out from the flock of Huaweidiao. AK-47, attack immediately. Seeing the urgent situation, Chu Tian immediately thought of his magical pet. He hugged Xiao Bai, pulled Ba back tat, and hid on AK-47's broad back. Several spider threads shot through, and the sealed cabin immediately developed a large hole. The strong winds that rushed in caused Tap DAC in the cabin to sway unstably. Tap DAC, come up here. Seeing the wind was too strong, Chu Tian pulled Tap DAC onto AK-47's body. Thank you, sir. Tap DAC said gratefully, then continued to command the battle via the communication stone. Spider threads continuously shot out through the hole in the airship cabin, and the situation immediately improved. AK-47 continuously fired spider threads, each silver line causing the gargoyles to shriek in misery. At the airship's stern, magical light also flashed, as the two magic masters had also taken action. Under the combined attack of two 7th grade masters and a 7th grade magical beast, the gargoyles' movement slowed down. But at this very moment, the number of gargoyles also increased greatly. The second chain was quickly broken, and the cabin clearly tilted to one side. Damn it! This auntie won't let you little bats get away. AK-47, upon seeing the gargoyles flying towards the third chain, angrily cursed. The first mission given by the boss had not been completed, that would truly be a disservice to the master's generous treatment. AK-47 took a deep breath, then opened its mouth, launching a giant web. The web ensnared 3 gargoyles, trapping them. Then AK-47 swung them fiercely like a shot put, and the several gargoyles vanished without a trace. Well done! Ha ha ha! Chu Tian laughed loudly, pleased with AK-47's performance. From now on, your daily food allowance will increase by 10 gold coins. Chu Tian would never treat his strong subordinates unfairly. Upon hearing that the boss increased its salary, AK-47's eyes lit up, and its spider thread shot out even more powerfully. As a result, in less than a minute, more than 10 gargoyles disappeared. But at this moment, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th chains also snapped. Gargoyles were indeed worthy of being 6th grade magical beasts. Their intelligence was not like that of Huaweidiao. This could be seen from how they chose which chains to sever. The 5 chains that had just broken were all the largest and most important ones. Thus, the remaining chains would no longer be able to support the weight of the airship. After a few wobbles, the airship and the balloon finally separated. Chu Tian's group in the cabin also fell along with it. Hold tight to me. AK-47 shouted loudly, then leaped out. In midair, it opened its mouth and shot out a stream of spider silk, sticking it to the rising balloon. Boom boom, the cabin hit the ground with a thunderous crash. Chu Tian, tightly clutching Xiao Bai with one hand, and AK-47 with the other, along with Ba Back Tat and Tap DAC, who were clinging to AK-47's legs, luckily escaped disaster. Praising the goddess of life. Suspended in midair, and then only a few meters from the ground, Chu Tian thought fearfully, this opponent was truly ruthless, not sparing a single person on an entire airship. The airship crashed, and the retainers responsible for protection and service naturally turned to ashes. But some intelligent individuals, such as the 3 magic masters, at the most dangerous moment, cast wind attribute magic on themselves and then leaped out of the cabin. After completing their mission, the gargoyles did not rush to leave but began to attack the Suthu. A 6th grade against a 4th grade naturally had an overwhelming advantage. Before long, the Suthu were completely annihilated. But Chu Tian no longer had time to care about the Suthu. As AK-47 safely touched down, Chu Tian, on its back, sadly discovered, he was surrounded. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Ko-Lap Mountain Chapter 39, Unsafe Landing. Chu Tian was surrounded by a pack of wolves, but this fierce wolf pack now seemed harmless, because in front of Chu Tian stood a fierce-looking ox-headed beast man, wearing heavy armor and wielding a great saber. Although Chu Tian, standing upright, only reached the beastman's waist, he thought to himself, what a short person. Calling the ox-headed beastman short was mainly because a gigantic monster was assisting him from behind. The shadow of that giant monster obscured both the ox-headed beastman and AK-47, let alone the small figures of Chu Tian's group. The owner of that shadow was a huge, immature mammoth. Standing right beside the elephant's body, AK-47 barely reached its belly. So, compared to this guy, the wolves surrounding Chu Tian were not even worth mentioning. There was absolutely no danger. This is an 8th grade mammoth. Ba Bak Tat whispered from behind Chu Tian, its power is second only to the golden behemoth giant beast, its strength is unmatched, very difficult to deal with. Mammoth? And an 8th grade? Praising the goddess of life. It's not that it's difficult to deal with, but rather impossible to deal with. He might be the strongest here, but he was just an imposter, without any magic power. Chu Tian truly had no way out this time. Ah, gentlemen beastmen, may I ask why you invited me down here? If force couldn't solve it, then Chu Tian would use his specialty, bluffing. Humph. The ox-headed beastman snorted indifferently, scornfully saying, I am the Minotaur chieftain Ba Si Dang. I came here to kill you, the great priest master. Praising the goddess of life. Can't you speak more subtly? Chu Tian was at a loss, rattling off, I have always respected brave warriors, and I am very happy to duel with a master like you. He only hoped that this Ba Si Dang was useless. But Ba Bak Tat, behind him, shattered that hope. He whispered, Sir, Ba Si Dang is one of the beast race's top masters. Not only is he an 8th grade sword saint himself, but that mammoth also seems to be his magical pet. Although I want to duel with you, I am injured recently and cannot use magic power. Hearing Ba Bak Tat's reminder, Chu Tian immediately changed his tune. Not to mention an imposter like himself, even if he were real, he couldn't cope with Ba Si Dang. Priests specialized in healing, their offensive power was inherently weaker than other masters of the same rank. Moreover, beastmen were naturally strong, their strength always superior to human masters of the same rank. No magic power? What a pity. Although I also want to fight you, I still have to kill you now. Saying that, Ba Si Dang raised the great saber in his hand. Wait. Chu Tian roared loudly, startling everyone, then solemnly said, to die at the hands of a brave warrior like you, I have no regrets. But you must tell me why you want to kill me? He would stall for as long as he could. Chu Tian spoke casually, but his mind raced for a solution. Could it be that your beast race also received an invitation from the Dragon Emperor, and therefore wants to eliminate a rival like me? That's right. Our great prophet Enla Xianxing also received an invitation, but Ba Si Dang showed immense respect when mentioning Enla, but his tone immediately changed, but I am not killing you for that reason. You are not worthy of being Enla Xianxing's rival. Enla? Chu Tian smiled, his eyes habitually narrowed, then do you know who my master is? And Dong and I had once told Chu Tian that he and the beast race's prophet, Enla, shared a deep friendship. With this connection, wouldn't Ba Si Dang show mercy? Of course, I know. Your master is the saint priest, and Dong and I Xianxing. Ba Si Dang also showed great respect towards Ndong and I. Although Ndong and I had participated in wars against the beast race in his youth, the respect for powerful individuals on the Huan Thursday continent did not distinguish between friend and foe. Haha, my master and Enla Xianxing are old friends, so we are all one family. Chu Tian laughed heartily, trying to bridge the relationship. Humph. Ndong and I Xianxing is a great priest, comparable to Enla Xianxing, but you are not. Ba Si Dang coldly rejected Chu Tian's goodwill. Even if Chu Tian were truly an 8th grade great priest master, he would merely be on par with Ba Si Dang, and thus naturally wouldn't command Ba Si Dang's respect. I'm not? Chu Tian gave a cold laugh, haha, I naturally cannot be on par with Enla Xianxing. I have admired him for a very long time. Seeing Ba Deng soften when he flattered the beast race's prophet, Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and continued, if everyone here admires En La Xian Xing, then it's simple. Come, let's drink and chat. Saying that, Chu Tian handed Xiao Bai to Ba Bak Tat, and winked, butler. Bring out the wine. Ba Bak Tat understood. He took Xiao Bai, removed its collar, haha, respected warrior Ba Deng, we have the finest Fu Te wine on the continent. A jar of wine was taken from the collar. The rich aroma of wine immediately filled the air. Xiao Bai sadly looked at its entire fortune, swallowing its tears and turning its head away. At this moment, it couldn't cause more trouble for Chu Tian over a little wine. Ba Deng swallowed hard, taking a deep breath of the aroma in the air. His ox-like eyes stared at the wine jar. Good wine. I remember the last time I drank this kind of wine was 10 years ago. Of course, Boss's wine is the best on the continent. You should try some. Seeing the alcohol craving rise in Ba Deng, AK-47, standing by, added. The wine is good indeed. But. Ba Deng suddenly swung the saber in his hand. Clang, a jar of wine was shattered. But I'm not foolish enough to drink wine from a necromancer. The plan failed. It seemed the beastmen weren't as foolish as the legends claimed. Chu Tian had deliberately had Ba Bak Tat retrieve the Fu Te wine instead of doing it himself, hoping Ba Bak Tat would find an opportunity to add dark poison to it. But unexpectedly, Ba Deng knew Ba Bak Tat's identity. Someone must have leaked the secret. Praise the goddess of life. How could I do such a thing? Chu Tian again put on a shamanistic demeanor, solemnly saying, do you think a disciple of the saint priest would do such a shameless thing? This. And Dong Mi's noble character, which had spread across the continent, now worked its magic. Ba Bak Tat was also hesitant. Master, I want to drink wine. Like a bolt from the blue, the mammoth spoke in a booming voice, I'm 3 years old, but I've never drunk such good wine. 3 years old? Chu Tian looked up, trying to see but could only reach the mammoth's belly. An immature elephant, only 3 years old, was already like this? If it were 30 years old. Useless thing. Ba Deng was furious. He swung his great saber backward, and a blast of energy hit his magical pet's body. You're just making me lose face. His own magical beast was asking for wine from the enemy at this moment, which made Ba Deng lose all face. Who? The mammoth cried out in agony. A purple bruise immediately appeared on its body. Chu Tian clicked his tongue, thinking, why does this beast man abuse his magical pet so much? If this 8th grade mammoth was such a perfect worker, and it was only 3 years old, its future potential was limitless. But this child's defense was truly abnormal. An 8th grade sword saint's battle chi only left a bruise. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 40, Conspiracy on Land. Don't. It's only 3 years old, it doesn't understand anything. How can you hit it? Chu Tian looked at it with a pained expression, then picked up a jar of wine and ran to the elephant's trunk, smiling, come, uncle will get you some wine. Haha. Thank you, uncle. The mammoth smiled innocently, but unexpectedly, its voice made Chu Tian's ears ring. Then it extended its massive trunk towards Chu Tian, curling it around the wine jar. You mustn't drink. Ba Deng was furious, another flash of battle chi, boomed the mammoth's body and the wine jar both fell to the ground. The ground shook for a moment. Oh. Oh. The mammoth swallowed its tears and stood up, I want to drink. Chu Tian, seeing the mammoth fall, quickly took out a pile of tools and medicines from his magic ring, ran over and said, come on, bear with it a little, uncle will treat your wounds. These medicines were all concocted by Chu Tian based on their original forms on Earth, and reinforced with magical power. He had originally intended to use them to treat the Dragon Emperor's body. After all, if he didn't have some real skill at the medical conference, he would definitely become the laughingstock of the entire continent. Chu Tian's medical and priestly arts were a perfect combination. As soon as the magical ointments were applied to the wounds, the bruises on the mammoth's body disappeared. "Thank you, uncle, you're amazing. Before, when my master hit me, the priests in our tribe took several days to heal my wounds. Now I believe you are worthy of being compared to En-La Xianxing the prophet." The beastman's generous nature was displayed by Ba Si Deng. He frankly spoke his thoughts. Wounds caused by 8th grade battle chi healed in an instant. This was absolutely the level of a 9th grade saint priest. But I have another reason to kill you. En-La Xianxing's rival must be eliminated. Haha, warrior Ba Si Deng, Ba Bak Tat suddenly approached, scornfully saying, "If you dare not drink the wine I pour, then would you also not dare to drink wine poured by a dog?" Saying this, Ba Bak Tat hugged Xiao Bai, lifted it for Ba Si Deng to see. "It's just an ordinary dog. What's there not to dare drink?" Ba Si Deng's dignity as a strong individual was provoked, and he had to react. He meticulously observed Xiao Bai for a while, confirming it was just an ordinary pet. Then, under the allure of the fine wine and Xiao Bai's harmless smile, Ba Si Deng finally agreed, but still sneered, "I will drink this wine, but that's after I've killed all of you. Praise the goddess of life." So Tian pointed to Xiao Bai's collar, exclaiming in surprise, "You should know that nothing in a magic ring can be taken out without the owner's permission. If you kill me, my pet will never give you wine." Xiao Bai, hearing So Tian's words, cooperatively raised its head, pretending to rather die than submit. "All right. I'll drink it all and then kill you." Ba Si Deng knew the characteristics of magic rings were as So Tian described, but he was still extremely cautious. He glanced at Ba Bak Tat and said, "When I drink, you must stay far away." "Okay. No problem. We'll all stay away." So Tian answered for Ba Bak Tat, then pointed to the surrounding wolves, "Then you tell them to back off first. Everyone stand back, monitor from a distance. Just don't let them escape." Ba Si Deng gave the order. Then all the wolves dispersed. So Tian immediately took Tap Dac, Ba Bak Tat, and AK-47 and ran far away, leaving Xiao Bai alone among the wolves. "Ooh." Xiao Bai gave an innocent smile, its tiny body pushing all the wine jars on the ground away, implying, "If you're not at ease, Ba Bak Tat's wine is all gone." All the wine jars were pushed back. Xiao Bai patted its collar, and another pile of fine wine appeared. "Ooh." Xiao Bai jumped onto one of the wine jars, tried to push the lid open, then dipped its head in for a sip. "Are you at ease now? I personally tasted it." After a while, Ba Si Deng saw that Xiao Bai showed no ill effects, and finally couldn't resist. He picked up the wine jar that Xiao Bai had drunk from and gulped it down. "Ha, good wine." Ba Si Deng praised, then looked at the mammoth, which was sticking out its tongue, raised his saber, and fiercely threatened, "You are not allowed to drink." Ba Si Deng was still very cautious. This time he was responsible for ambushing and killing So Tian, bringing only over 1,000 Huawei Diao and 50 gargoyles, plus several hundred third-grade wolves. In the aerial battle just now, the Huawei Diao and gargoyles had been almost entirely annihilated, so now he only had these several hundred third-grade wolves left. Therefore, Ba Si Deng did not let the mammoth drink. If the wine was problematic and he fell, he would still have an 8th-grade magical beast to deal with So Tian's group. If not, and the mammoth also fell, relying only on a few hundred third-grade wolves, he feared they wouldn't even be able to stop AK-47. Ba Si Deng's alcohol tolerance would absolutely put So Tian to shame. Soon, the empty wine jars piled up into a small mountain, but each jar had been tasted by Xiao Bai before being poured into his stomach. Ba Si Deng drank and drank, suddenly discovering a very interesting thing: Xiao Bai's alcohol tolerance was not bad at all. However many jars he drank, the amount Xiao Bai tasted was at least several jars. But it still seemed not to have had enough, licking its lips, looking pitifully at him. And so, the situation changed miraculously. Ba Si Deng, who had been drinking alone, now had Xiao Bai as his drinking companion, looking like two old drinking buddies reminiscing. Burp Ba Si Deng, having drunk a lot, began to boast, "I remember back then, the first time I drank this wine was 10 years ago, at that time, in one day, in Hongdo Hap Kok, I killed 3 6th grade great sword masters. The Beastman King was so happy he rewarded me with. Wu Xiaobai also cooperatively showed an admiring gaze, and offered Ba Si Deng another jar of wine, then turned towards Ba Si Deng to listen to his glorious battle achievements. That's right. Ba Si Deng felt that Xiaobai, the alcoholic, was perfectly suited to his tastes. Later, when I kill Fat Lap Dyke Nac, then you will follow me. There will be wine to drink. Ooh. Xiaobai cried out happily twice, seemingly delighted to have found a good master, but in its heart, it secretly thought, who will be killed is still unknown. Ba Si Deng, spitting as he spoke, suddenly began to cry loudly. He casually threw away his weapon, patted Xiaobai, and complained, "We beastmen are so poor. We live in hardship every day. Even a chieftain prince like me can't afford to drink this good wine." Xiaobai nodded in comfort, offered another jar of wine, then secretly counted, 5, 4, 3. Thud as Xiaobai finished counting, Ba Si Deng also collapsed. So Tian's plan had succeeded. Faced with such a perfectly accurate ambush, So Tian knew that someone must have leaked his route. If his route was known, Ba Si Deng couldn't possibly be unaware of Ba Bak Tat's identity. Therefore, at first, the wine jars Ba Bak Tat offered were indeed poison-free, while the real poison was in Xiaobai, which Ba Bak Tat was holding. When Ba Si Deng inspected it, the poison was conveniently slipped into Xiaobai's collar. Then, by having Xiaobai proactively taste each jar, it not only made Ba Si Deng lower his guard but also facilitated the poisoning. No matter how clever Ba Si Deng was, he could never have guessed that an ordinary pet dog possessed the intelligence to do such things. So Tian, seeing Xiaobai succeed from a distance, cheered, then drew Dip Ko Lap's rage flame, charging towards the wolves and the mammoth, shouting, "Don't move. Your master is drunk, and I will help him sober up now." Originally, upon seeing Ba Si Deng fall, the wolves and the mammoth had stirred, but hearing So Tian's words, they calmed down. They had no other choice. In the mammoth's heart, the uncle who gave it wine was a good person. Furthermore, with its 3-year-old intelligence, it still couldn't understand the concept of poisoning. Since its master had collapsed, it also became gentler. As for the several hundred wolves, seeing the mammoth not act, they themselves dared not make a move. Magical beasts also had their rules. If an 8th grade magical beast hadn't acted, how would these 3rd grade wolves dare to be reckless? Moreover, AK-47 was staring at them nearby. "Uncle. Master is unconscious, so can you let me secretly drink some wine?" The naive mammoth asked So Tian, just a little bit. "Haha, good child." So Tian narrowed his eyes, casually pointing to the pile of wine Xiaobai had pushed away. "That's all for you. If it's not enough, I still have more." Yeah, the mammoth cheered, jumping and charging towards the Fu Si Te wine, making the ground shake, which caused Ba Si Deng to jolt. "Boss, what do we do now?" Ba Bak Tat pointed at the hundreds of surrounding wolves, asking So Tian unhappily. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Ko Lap Mountain Chapter 41, Taking What You Want. "First, you wake him up." So Tian pointed at Ba Si Deng, adding, "Just make him conscious, don't let him recover his strength." "Boss, don't worry." Ba Bak Tat smiled sinisterly. He knelt down, clapped Ba Si Deng's body for a while. "All right, now he can't even do anything to a child." "Ha ha ha. Praise the goddess of life." So Tian laughed wickedly, holding Dip Ko Lap's rage flame, placing it on Ba Si Deng's chest, who was gradually regaining consciousness. The flames blazed, as if wanting to roast Ba Si Deng into barbecue. Then he said indifferently, "Respected ox-headed warrior, how about we make a deal now? You are truly despicable and shameless." Ba Si Deng, upon waking, understood what had happened. He wanted to get up but found himself utterly powerless. "I can't believe in Dong Ni's disciple would do such things. Praise the goddess of life." The goddess said, "One should use wisdom to defeat enemies, not brute force." Have you ever heard that saying? Never mind, a barbarian like you has probably never heard it. Tian hastily argued. You. Bossy Dang was almost mad with rage, but dared not refute. Someone who had never read a book, like Bossy Dang, genuinely couldn't tell if the goddess had said that or not. And Beastman revered the gods, so he tacitly accepted Tian's words. However, after his initial fury, Bossy Dang remembered something: he still had a magical pet. He immediately whistled, summoning the mammoth, and ordered, "Kill them all." Although Bossy Dang had given the order, it had no effect. "Master, this uncle is a good person, can you not kill him?" Praising the goddess of life, Bossy Dang almost vomited blood in anger, but Tian immediately made him vomit it out. "Haha, good child, come here, I have wine. Take the wine and drink it elsewhere. Also, bring your little friends to drink with you." Saying that, Tian took all the wine from his magic ring and offered it. "Thank you, uncle. Come here, little friends, let's drink together." The mammoth happily curled its trunk around the wine jars and ran off with the wild wolves, leaving only Bossy Dang alone and utterly despondent. "You, what do you want now?" "Praise the goddess of life, don't worry, I won't harm you." Tian withdrew to collapse rage flame, smiling. "I just want to discuss some business with you." "Business? All right. If you don't harm me, I'll let you go." It seemed this mission could not be completed. "No. No. No." Tian waved his hand. "Your life is in my hands. What makes you think you can let me go?" "Then what do you want?" "The mammoth?" "That's impossible." Bossy Dang, realizing Tian's intentions, immediately refused. However, this was only a small part of Tian's scheme. "That's right. I want the mammoth. TSK, this child has suffered too much with you." Tian said with a sorrowful expression, "Give it to me, and I will restore your strength." Bossy Dang secretly tried to circulate his energy. Sure enough, he didn't have a shred of strength left. This was a fatal blow for a sword saint. He said mournfully, "All right, I'll give it to you. However, I subjugated that mammoth with my own strength. There's no contract whatsoever. You'll have to persuade it yourself." "Haha, as long as you agree, the rest is up to me." Saying that, Tian looked into the distance, where the mammoth was playfully frolicking with the wild wolves, then pointed at AK-47, "It's your responsibility. Do it well, and I'll reward you with 30 gold coins added to your daily food allowance." To tame a child, women still had an advantage. "Hee hee. Boss, don't worry." AK-47's eyes flashed with the light of gold coins as it looked towards the mammoth, greedily approaching it, cooing, "Come here, little elephant, Auntie has delicious food for you." With the mammoth's matter settled, Tian brought up his second question. "Finally, who ordered you to kill me? Was it Kaisa's prime minister, and Downey?" Bossy Dang closed his eyes, resolutely saying, "A sword saint's honor forbids me from answering this question." "Go ahead and kill me." Tian paused, extremely surprised. On the Huan Thursday continent, the so-called dignity of a powerful individual was a very thorny issue. It seemed Bossy Dang would definitely not speak. "Praise the goddess of life. I respect your honor, so I won't ask about this matter anymore." Bossy Dang looked at Tian with a hint of gratitude, feeling a little apologetic, and couldn't help but say, "I can only tell you that this matter has absolutely nothing to do with Downey." "Nothing to do with Downey? Then who else could it be?" Tian's heart was full of questions, but he couldn't come up with a viable solution for the moment, because there was a more important matter. "How did you manage to bring so many frenzied wolves and the mammoth to this dry land?" This was what Tian wanted to know most. The Taebok Lam airship had crashed and shattered. What would he use to cross this mire to reach a Kolap mountain? Moreover, the fact that Bossy Dang could bring so many magical beasts here indicated that he must have sufficient means of transport. "Uncle." At this moment, the mammoth, following AK-47, ran over to Tian, making the ground shake once more. "Is it done?" Tian asked AK-47 in a low voice. "Yes, no problem. AK-47 also gave Chu Tian a satisfactory answer. Uncle, this auntie said that if I follow you from now on, I'll get to eat 10 wild boars every day. Is that true? The mammoth nudged Chu Tian with its trunk, still daring not to believe it. Bossy Dang also clicked his tongue, looking at Chu Tian with surprise. Wild boars were the most common food for magical beasts on land. Not only did they provide a lot of meat, but they were also cheap, costing only a few silver coins. However, that was in Kaisa. In the vast, food-scarce grasslands, their price was not that cheap. Bossy Dang, a chieftain prince, was only allotted a few every day. Chu Tian was speechless. How were the magical pets of the Huan Thursday continent all abused by their masters? Haha, good child, if you help Uncle fight from now on, Uncle will give you 10 wild boars every day. Wow. Thank you, Uncle. The mammoth said happily, I love fighting the most. Getting to fight and eat wild boars, it's great. Right, Uncle still doesn't know your name? Chu Tian narrowed his eyes, beginning to think about the second weapon in his magical beast army. AK-47 and Xiaobai looked at the mammoth with pity. Given the names of the two of them, this immature little elephant's nickname would probably not be very pleasant either. I don't have a name. Everyone calls me Xiao Luzi. Xiao Luzi? Chu Tian almost choked when he heard this name. It sounded very similar to a precious profession on Earth. Why do they call you Xiao Luzi? AK-47 asked, surprised. She finally discovered a name that sounded even less dignified than her own. Because my strength is ranked 6th. Xiao Luzi said proudly, but now I'm ranked 2nd. Because big brother, second brother, third brother, and fourth brother now have no strength left. Chu Tian, upon hearing a series of such meaningless names, secretly thought, beastmen are truly a bunch of uncultured people. So your 4 brothers are the golden behemoth giant beasts, aren't they? Chu Tian suddenly thought of this question. Among the beast race, only the golden behemoth giant beasts were stronger than this mammoth. Moreover, the reason they lost their strength was probably a good thing caused by Chu Tian. That's right? How does Uncle know? Xiao Luzi asked in surprise. Now only Sister Yun Ke, who brought us here, is stronger than me. Sister Yun Ke? Is that the 7th grade Chu Tian Yun Ke? Ba Bak Tat, with his extensive knowledge, immediately recognized the identity of that little magical sparrow. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 42, The Giant Cloud Sparrow. A tiny little cloud sparrow daring to take the name Chu Tian, sky shrouding? This made Chu Tian very uncomfortable. Chieftain Bossy Dang, look. Saying this, Chu Tian pointed at the Te Bok Lam airship, which was shattered in the distance. Consider yourself formidable. In the future, take good care of yourself, don't fall into my hands. Bossy Dang understood Chu Tian's scheme and cursed angrily. Now the Chu Tian Yun Ke has also fallen into the hands of a despicable priest, worse than beasts, like you. It's unbelievable that the saint priest would raise such a contemptible disciple. First, you tricked the 8th grade mammoth, Xiao Luzi, and now you won't even spare the Chu Tian Yun Ke. Truly shameless. All my possessions are gone. Ah, don't say that. Chu Tian was not angry at all. Tricking someone else's magical pet and being cursed a few times was no big deal. Look. My airship has become a pile of scrap metal. You need to compensate me for something, don't you? If you don't want to give me magical beasts, then compensate me with 1 million gold coins. Dream on. I'll compensate you with the Chu Tian Yun Ke. Bossy Dang had no other choice but to choose compensation with a magical beast. Moreover, he knew that the 1 million gold coins Chu Tian demanded was definitely not an attempt to extort him. The Te Bok Lam airship was certainly worth that price. But for someone as poor as him, and with his life entrusted to Chu Tian, there was only the path of meekly surrendering the Chu Tian Yun Ke to him. Bossy Dang let out a howl, and then the ground shook. A whirlwind rose. The sky and earth darkened, followed by an endless black curtain engulfing the ground. So Tian saw a feather from the magical sparrow that was almost as large as his own body, secretly marveling. This magical sparrow is truly enormous. Tell it to fly a little higher. I can't see clearly. So Tian shouted in the whirlwind. Currently, the little magical sparrow was only flying a few meters above So Tian's head, making it difficult to see its entire body. Ba Si Dang followed his instructions, and then, amidst the whistling wind, a completely green cloud sparrow appeared before So Tian's eyes. No wonder it could carry hundreds of wild wolves and the mammoth across the Transmigrated. So Tian briefly observed that the sparrow's two wings spanned over 100 meters, and some of its features differed from sparrows on Earth. Its body was flatter, and its back was wider. All right. Tell it to land. So Tian wanted to get closer and admire the third member of his magical beast army. Once again, the ground shook. The Chu Tian Yun-Kei, with its wings folded, still stood over 30 meters tall, landing on the ground. Sister Yun-Kei. From now on, both of us have a new master. Xiao Luzi ran over, pouting playfully. On the ground, a strange scene suddenly appeared, a magical sparrow gently caressing a tiny elephant at its feet, and beside the elephant's foot, a delicate tiny spider lay prostrate. As for So Tian, he was like a speck of dust. Change master? Why is that? Do I no longer have a master? Yun-Kei gently asked. In truth, the Chu Tian Yun-Kei was not originally Ba Si Dang's magical pet. Moreover, due to this mission, it had become a masterless magical pet, withdrawn from the beast race's army. Yun-Kei's personality was gentle, it seemed not meant for attacking others. Its sole purpose was transport, occasionally flapping its wings to create fake wind attribute magic. In reality, the true strength of this 8th-grade magical beast was judged higher due to its massive size. Thus, the beast race also kept one, but Yun-Kei was actually very difficult to use in actual combat. I failed in the battle with Fat Lapdyke NAC. Ba Si Dang explained sadly. On this continent, there was an unwritten rule. In war, if high-ranking generals or important figures were captured, they could be ransomed with items. Therefore, Ba Si Dang handed Yun-Kei over to So Tian without hesitation, and the Beastman King would not punish him for it. At most, he would be accused of poor combat performance. Lord Fat Lapdyke NAC, I have heard of your great name. I hope to be of assistance in the future? A gentle voice, seemingly heard somewhere before, spoke up, but So Tian craned his neck, almost breaking it, yet couldn't locate the source of the voice. Haha, don't worry, I treat my magical pets very well. Is 100 gold coins a day okay? Plus bonuses. Although Chu Tian Yun-Kei and AK-47 were both 7th-grade magical pets, their treatment should be the same as before, otherwise, it would cause discord among his subordinates. How about an additional 100 wild boars? So Tian calculated Yun-Kei's physique for a moment, estimating its food intake would not be small, probably similar to Xiaobai's alcohol tolerance. He immediately factored the subordinate's food and drink allowance into his income. No. I don't need wild boars. I'm a vegetarian. And I don't eat much. Yun-Kei gently rejected So Tian's kind offer. As for money, you can give it to Xiao Luzi, it eats a lot. After speaking, it lovingly patted the mammoth with its wing. Sister, Uncle said he would give me 10 wild boars every day. Uncle is a good person. Uncle will definitely give you lots of delicious food. Xiao Luzi, having just joined the group, quickly grasped the essence of So Tian's deception, trying to recruit new members for So Tian. So Tian was now overjoyed, feeling jubilant. An 8th-grade mammoth, 2 7th-grade magical beasts, plus Ba-Bak Tat who knew how to poison, and Xiaobai who was adept at deception. His army had finally reached its initial scale. In terms of strength, even if his lack of magic was exposed, he still had some capital to preserve his life. Thinking of this, So Tian's eyes narrowed into a smile. Xiaobai, however, painfully closed its eyes. It understood So Tian's expression too well. The unfortunate Yun-Kei was probably about to receive some terrible nickname. As expected, Xiao Bai's guess was spot on. Su Tian put on a shamanistic demeanor and said, "Praise the goddess of life. You have become my third magical pet. On behalf of the goddess, I bestow upon you a new name, Boeing 747. Xiao Bai and AK-47 bowed their heads, silently praying for the new victim. Su Tian suddenly remembered a problem: he hadn't named his second magical pet yet. Xiao Luzi, uncle will give you a new name, alright? Su Tian resorted to his deceitful trick again. Your current name doesn't sound very good. Yes. Thank you, uncle. Big brother often says my name isn't as good as his. Hearing Xiao Luzi say that, Su Tian almost choked. That rotten big brother's name, how could he possibly criticize Xiao Luzi's name? It seemed beastmen were not just uncultured, but their aesthetic sense was also negligible. Cough cough. Su Tian cleared his throat a few times, then again assumed his shamanistic posture, solemnly saying, "Praise the goddess of life. On behalf of the goddess, I bestow upon Xiao Luzi a new name, AI, let's call it Hanma." Su Tian, based on the mammoth's personality, and then linking it to the most war chariot on Earth, finally came up with a nickname for his second magical pet. However, this second magical pet showed dissatisfaction with the name, Uncle. Why is it called Hanma? I'm not a horse, I'm much stronger than a horse. Su Tian naturally wouldn't allow his subordinate to object to his opinion. He sternly said, "The goddess of life said that magical beasts stronger than horses are called Hanma." This time even Ba Si Dang, lying on the ground, couldn't help but stare in anger. But the less than 3-year-old Xiao Hanma still didn't understand, innocently asking, "Then why is Sister Yin K called Boeing 747? She's much stronger than a horse, so she should also be called Hanma, right?" Cough cough. This, you'll understand when you're older. Su Tian really couldn't bear to deceive this innocent child. Asterisk asterisk dash 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 asterisk 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 name of a type of engine. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 43, finally arrived. In the sky, an unusually large cloud sparrow carried a mammoth on its back. On the mammoth's back clung a beautiful spider, and naturally, on the spider's back was Su Tian. However, on Su Tian's head was Xiao Bai, making the scene truly resemble the family of Marquis Fu La Di Nua. Boeing 747 was absolutely an accurate name. Having once been a mode of transport for the beast race, its chest and belly were adorned with various large and small suspended cabins. Among them were over 20 Suthu who had escaped death, and the gargoyles that Su Tian had casually tricked away. Additionally, several hundred third-grade wild wolves accompanying Han Ma were gathered in these cabins, along with Ba Bak Tat and Tap Dac. The 3 rescued magic masters were arranged in a relatively comfortable small room on Boeing 747's back. After that, having extorted even the last bit of his capital, Su Tian finally released Ba Si Dang. After arranging things for Ba Si Dang, he gave him some food, enough to sustain him until rescue arrived. After all, Ba Si Dang was a chieftain prince of the beast race. Taking his magical pets and army as spoils of war was a continent-wide rule, so there was clearly nothing wrong with it. However, killing him would lead to big trouble. Even if the beast race didn't settle scores with the Kaisa Empire, the entire ox-headed race on the continent would be enough to make the rest of Su Tian's life miserable. Fortunately, the space in Su Tian's ring was large enough, and Su Tian, being naturally cautious and well-prepared, had meticulously stored the gifts for the Dragon Emperor and other powerful nations in his ring, ensuring no mishaps. Even the necessary food and drink from the airship's wreckage were salvaged and stored on Boeing 747. However, the most regrettable thing was that the wine was gone. First, he used wine to lure Ba Si Dang, then offered it to Han Ma and the wild wolves. In an instant, Xiao Bai's wine reserves were completely depleted. The result was that Su Tian had to make countless unreasonable promises to appease Xiao Bai's anger. As for the gargoyles, Su Tian had already dealt with them neatly. Naturally, he gave them the nickname, Fei Mao Tue, flying hair legs. It seemed So Tian harbored the hope that they would become booster rockets for Boeing 747. Boeing 747 flew very smoothly. Apart from So Tian on its back, no one felt that they were flying high in the air. The Transmigrated, seemingly endless, was crossed by Boeing 747 in 3 days, reaching a Kolap mountain. Boeing 747 maintained stability. Why are you shaking without wind? Han Ma, are you really alright? AK-47, why are you suddenly trembling? So Tian looked at his bewildered pets. From the moment they saw the towering mountain reaching into the clouds, whose peak couldn't be seen even from the sky, the magical beasts began to behave strangely. Only Xiaobai remained normal, cradling a jar of wine, sighing repeatedly, completely ignoring a Kolap mountain. Damn it, the dragons might hear us too strong. I can't breathe. AK-47 muttered, as if answering So Tian. Compared to humans, magical beasts' ability to sense danger was much stronger. And magical beasts had their own laws of survival. The pressure from a 10th-grade dragon emperor and countless giant dragons meant that an 8th-grade Han Ma, even 100 li away, couldn't endure it. Uncle. I don't want to go there. Han Ma said, pointing its trunk towards a Kolap mountain. You have entered the Dragon Clan's airspace. Stop immediately for inspection. So Tian was about to comfort Han Ma when a voice spoke up. A green giant dragon suddenly appeared in front of Boeing 747. I am Marquis Fu La Di Nua of the Kaisa Empire. I have been invited by the Dragon Emperor. So Tian shouted, simultaneously estimating the strength of this giant dragon, 8th grade. The reason was simple, among all his pets, only Xiaobai and Han Ma dared to look directly at this green giant dragon. Xiaobai was naturally bold, it feared that even the Dragon Emperor couldn't make it flinch. But Han Ma's naive attitude showed that only when encountering a magical beast of the same grade would Han Ma not fear the giant dragon in front of it. Fu La Di Nua? Then please provide proof. Hearing that the visitor was a guest of His Majesty the Dragon Emperor, the Azure Dragon's attitude softened. After checking So Tian's invitation, it said, Greetings, Lord Fu La Di Nua. I am the 8th grade wind attribute giant dragon, Kula Ku. Please follow me. Indeed, an 8th grade giant dragon. Praising the goddess of life. The Dragon Clan was truly mighty, even a receptionist was an 8th grade magical beast. So Tian thought as he ordered Boeing 747 to fly into a Kolap mountain. The immense scale of a Kolap mountain truly surpassed So Tian's imagination. Halfway up the towering peak, a vast square had been constructed. Boeing 747 landed in the square, looking no different than a small plane on an airfield. So Tian, along with Ba Bak Tat, Tap Dac, and the 3 magic masters, disembarked, carefully surveying the square. A large, flat platform had been built midway up the severed mountainside, surrounded by mist. The platform and the peak were connected by a sheer cliff, featuring a gate over 10 meters high, which led into the interior of a Kolap mountain. Lord Fu La Di Nua, according to the rules of a Kolap mountain, you must disarm all your forces, including weapons and magical beasts. Kulaka said immediately after So Tian disembarked. Disarm all forces? So Tian suddenly thought of the Wudong sect on Earth. It seemed not only their founders traveled to other worlds, but even the custom of surrendering weapons had been passed down to this other world. Alright, no problem. In someone else's territory, So Tian had to follow local customs. Moreover, he was in the territory of the Dragon Clan. He casually handed over Dukla Ko's rage flame to Kulaku, then shouted loudly. Brothers, everyone get down. Duk Ko La's rage flame startled Kulaku, he feared that even the Dragon Emperor's treasure vault didn't contain such a valuable item. But he was immediately drawn to So Tian's colossal beasts, a majestic white dog, Xiaobai, proudly leading a group of younger siblings down from the Jia Tianyun K, an 8th grade mammoth, a 7th grade Chu Mian Ren, human-faced spider, and several hundred 3rd grade wild wolves. Finally, from Boeing 747's wings, more than 10 Su-30 and 8 rockets, gargoyles, flew out. Ah! Kulaka gave 2 dry laughs. Lord Fula di Nua's strength is truly formidable. So Tian outwardly showed humility, but inwardly he was very pleased. With my army here, even a small country could be wiped out. Unexpectedly, Kulaka splashed So Tian with cold water. These magical beasts, plus Lord Fula di Nua's 8th grade strength, should definitely be able to survive against a 9th grade powerhouse. So Tian's smugness suddenly deflated like a punctured balloon. However, he also had to admit that although his subordinates were numerous, compared to true powerhouses, only Han Ma could inflict a little damage. The remaining magical beasts had only one mission, to preserve their own lives. Kulaka handed over to another 7th grade giant dragon, who led So Tian's magical beasts and retainers to a temporary resting place at the foot of the mountain, while he himself led So Tian into a Kolap mountain. Asterisk asterisk dash 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 asterisk asterisk asterisk. This paragraph is probably related to the work Zhang Sanfeng in Another World. For more details, please read that series. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 44, The Beast Race Prophet. The structure of a Kolap mountain was like a skyscraper. The dragon clan did not live around the mountain but dug deep into it, creating an otherworldly paradise. As So Tian stepped into a Kolap mountain, he suddenly felt as if he had returned to a primitive era. The mountain's interior was cylindrical, with a central square. The space above was hollowed out, leading straight to the peak of a Kolap mountain, where sunlight, as large as a bull's mouth, shone down from above. Around the square were various shaped rooms and palaces. These structures clung to the mountainside, rising layer upon layer, countless in number. Innumerable magic crystals adorned the mountainside, soft light filling the mountain's interior. Giant dragons, some landing in the square, others flying high above, occasionally revealed the figure of a human, undoubtedly a 9th grade giant dragon capable of transforming into human form. After Kulaka entered the mountain, he allowed So Tian to ride on his back. Young master So now experienced the sensation of being a dragon knight. One must know that this was a rare opportunity, as the proud dragon clan did not easily allow others to ride on their backs. But this time was special, because the place Kulaka wanted to take So Tian was on the upper level of a Kolap mountain. Even a giant dragon would take several minutes to fly there, and So Tian's Boeing 747 had been temporarily confiscated. Could they really make a guest of the Dragon Emperor climb all the way up? So Kulaka had to bear the inconvenience for a while. One human and one dragon slowly ascended, and Kulaka took this opportunity to introduce a Kolap mountain. A Kolap mountain is divided into 2 areas, inner and outer. The outer area is home to lower-grade subdragons, who are responsible for guarding against external intruders. The inner mountain is the world of our dragon clan. Because the dragon clan's strength varied from 7th grade young dragons to 10th grade dragon emperors, their activity areas within the mountain also differed. Saying this, Kulaka circled once, allowing So Tian to clearly see the surrounding scenery. This is where the 7th grade young dragons reside. Above that is the place for ordinary 8th grade giant dragons, and other 8th grade dragon clans live on the highest floor. So Tian followed Kulaka's guidance, carefully observing the dragon clan's residences, secretly thinking, the dragon clan is truly a place where strength is revered. The architecture on the mountainside was clearly divided into 3 levels. The residences of lower-grade giant dragons were very ordinary, but those of 8th grade giant dragons were no less grand than noble mansions in the empire. As for the residences of other 8th grade giant dragons, they could already rival Kaisa's imperial palace. Where does His Majesty the Dragon Emperor live? So Tian was eager to know how magnificent the Dragon Emperor's residence was. His Royal Highness and the Supreme Council elders live on the highest floors. This time, you and the other heroes are arranged on the floor below His Majesty's palace. Kulaka replied. Supreme Council? Praising the goddess of life. Could it be that the dragon clan also lived under a democratic system? Chu Tian began to pray for Dragon Emperor Ali Situada. Chu Tian now strongly disliked the word democracy. He was a high-ranking noble, belonging to the ruling class in a feudal system. How could he willingly think of the word democracy? Who else has arrived so far? Chu Tian thought he should understand the situation beforehand to facilitate his work. You are the third person. Before you arrived, there was the magic god My Lamb from the Ai Nitam kingdom and the beast race prophet En-La. En-La? Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and smiled. The debt from Ba Si Deng had not been fully settled. If he had a chance, he would surely make things difficult for that accursed fellow. En-La held a very high position in the beast race, even higher than Ndong and I and Kai Sa. Therefore, he couldn't possibly be unaware of Ba Si Deng leading the beast race army to attack Chu Tian. It was highly possible that he was the one who instigated it. Even if he wasn't involved, seeing his old friend's disciple attacked and not giving a warning was simply too much. While Chu Tian was calculating how to retaliate against En-La, Kolaka stopped. Lord Fu La Di Nua, we have arrived. Chu Tian jumped off the dragon's back, looking around. He saw that they had reached the peak of a kolap. The shimmering light he had seen earlier was now comparable to the dome of Kai Sa's grand arena. Scattered across the mountainside were several magnificent villas. Further up was the palace of Dragon Emperor Ali Situada. Lord Fu La Di Nua, this is your accommodation. Kulaku pointed to a villa and introduced it. Praise the goddess of life. I truly like this place. Chu Tian replied humbly, but added, but I want to visit Lord En-La first. He is an old friend of my master, Lord Ndong and I. Alright, follow me. However, Lord En-La doesn't like this place, so we respected his habits and arranged for him to stay one floor below. When Kulaku took Chu Tian to En-La's residence, young master so immediately understood why En-La and Ndong and I could be friends. It turned out they both liked to self-deprecate, preferring to live in humble cottages. I won't disturb you further. Call me when you need to leave. Kulaku said, then handed Chu Tian a magic communication stone, which annoyed Chu Tian, who usually liked to shout loudly. After Kulaku left, Chu Tian turned around, knocked on the door, and politely said, is Lord En-La there? Fu La Di Nua of the Kai Sa Empire requests an audience. Although Chu Tian had come to hold him accountable, he still had to be polite. After all, En-La was a 9th-grade magic god. Although a prophet's offensive power was weaker than even a priest's, it was rumored that every prophet possessed a mysterious power, so Chu Tian couldn't be too careless. Come in, I knew you would come to blame me. An ancient yet captivating voice sounded, and at the same time, the door opened automatically. Charlatan. This is truly a charlatan. Chu Tian thought to himself, it seems I still have much to learn. Chu Tian smiled, putting on a charlatan's pose, and walked in grandly. Inside, there was a crude wooden table, an old chair, and a spacious wooden bed. An old lion race beast man, dressed simply, sat on the chair, looking at Chu Tian. Praise the goddess of life. This junior's master. Chu Tian was about to speak of Ndong and I, but before he could finish, En-La cut him off. Ndong and I is doing very well, I already know that. Ah. Chu Tian forced a smile. This old man's charlatan skills were indeed extraordinary. This junior has heard of your great name. I know what you're going to say, the old lion cut off Chu Tian again, calmly saying, I also know that in your heart, you blame me for the Ba Si Deng incident. This. Chu Tian was speechless. Ba Si Deng's matter has nothing to do with me. Although I didn't inform you, didn't you also benefit greatly? How did this old man know? Chu Tian had only tricked Ba Si Deng 3 days ago, and Ba Si Deng was still waiting for rescue in the Transmigrated. How could En-La, in a Kolap mountain, know this news? And Chu Tian had already searched Ba Si Deng's person. There were no other communication devices. Do you have anything else you want to say? En-La asked. That's all. Chu Tian replied sadly. This old man's charlatan skills were terrifying, he didn't even get a chance to speak. Then you may leave. Chu Tian obediently turned to leave. Watching Chu Tian's retreating figure, Enla muttered, "My old friend and Dong and I. The most righteous thing you did in your life was to take in such a good disciple." Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 45, Veterinarian is a Promising Career, Part 1. Returning from La's place in a state of confusion, Chu Tian hadn't even entered his door when he saw a visitor. It was a very imposing old man in a white robe. Chu Tian, wearing a priest's white robe, standing next to him, looked like two charlatans exchanging cheating tips. "Young man, are you Fat Lapdyke NAC?" The old man scrutinized Chu Tian, asking with a dubious expression. Rumors often held tremendous power. From one bard to another, Chu Tian's reputation had been exaggerated countless times beyond his actual strength. Now, young Master Chu was a well-known figure on the continent, so the old man, who had heard rumors about Chu Tian, couldn't believe that the ordinary young man in front of him was the proud priest of the continent described by the bards. Praise the goddess of life. "I am Fat Lapdyke NAC. May I ask which high-ranking individual of the dragon clan you are?" Chu Tian said humbly. Currently, there were only 3 outsiders in a Kolap mountain. Chu Tian had already met Enla. The magic god my lamb of Ai Ni Tam was female, so this old man must be a high-ranking individual of the dragon clan capable of human transformation. Furthermore, judging by his age, he must hold an extraordinary position within the dragon clan. Chu Tian, eager to curry favor with the dragon clan, naturally wouldn't let this good opportunity pass. "Seeing your temperament, you must be an elder of the dragon clan, renowned throughout the continent? May I know your name?" "Ah." The old dragon was very pleased with Chu Tian's attitude. Old people with some status all suffered from a common ailment. They liked to be praised and respected by the young, especially by famous young people like Chu Tian. "Haha, I dare not claim to be renowned throughout the continent. I am Elder Fat Lada of the Kolap Supreme Council." This old man was truly humble. Chu Tian looked at him scornfully. He hadn't been on the Huan Thursday continent for half a year, yet Chu Tian had heard the name Fat Lada no less than 20 times. Nightmare of the beauties on the continent. This was his nickname. This nickname had been circulating for thousands of years. When this old dragon was young, he often seduced daughters of good families. But he possessed immense wealth, a sweet tongue, and a handsome, dashing appearance, causing countless beauties to fall for him, only to be casually discarded later. Some, unable to bear it, sought revenge, but Fat Lada's 9th grade water attribute giant dragon strength was not mere empty fame. Such incidents continued until Fat Lada became an elder of the dragon clan, only then did they lessen. But even now, beauties on the continent shuddered at the mere mention of Fat Lada's infamous name. Praise the goddess of life. Could it be that you are the dream lover of countless beauties on the continent? Chu Tian slightly modified Fat Lada's nickname, acting as if he were incredibly excited, like meeting his idol. As expected, the lustful old dragon immediately fell for it. The dream lover of countless beauties on the continent? Haha, little brother Fat Lapdyke NAC is truly too polite. That's a very old story, I'm old now. It seemed this old man's intelligence was not much higher than Han Ma's. A few casual compliments, and he was already calling Chu Tian little brother, which truly made one feel a bit deflated from such an easy success. Haha, elder brother is just in his prime. How can you say you're old? If you say that, the beauties on this continent will be heartbroken. Fat Lada couldn't help but exclaim, little brother Fat Lapdyke NAC is indeed worthy of his reputation, but we must discuss the main matter first. Saying that, Fat Lada suddenly sternly regained the appropriate demeanor of a 9th grade powerhouse addressing an 8th grade individual. After all, Fat Lada had lived for several thousand years, he wouldn't easily fall into Chu Tian's trap. I have a magical pet that is injured, and I want to ask you, Fat Lapdyke NAC, to treat it. So he came to probe my strength. Chu Tian smiled faintly. It seemed the dragon clan still didn't trust this disciple who came in place of his master. Elder brother, why be so? polite. Such a small matter will be done immediately. Hearing Fat Lada's challenge, Chu Tian immediately agreed. If he used a person for the test, he would definitely be exposed. But Fat Lada used a magical beast, how could that stump a veterinarian? Fat Lada's magical beast was a 7th grade thunder eagle, with pale purple feathers, over 2 meters tall, and a wingspan of about 10 meters. Although thunder eagles were very formidable magical beasts, this one was now barely clinging to life. Chu Tian, seeing the thunder eagle's injuries, secretly cursed Fat Lada, "You old man are truly cruel." All the thunder eagle's bones were broken, lying in a heap on the ground, its feathers ruffled, its body mostly swollen. Clearly, the injuries were caused by water attribute magic, and 9th grade water attribute magic at that. Although Chu Tian's strength was not high, his eyesight was excellent. It seemed this thunder eagle was not originally Fat Lada's, but he had casually captured it to test Chu Tian, using 9th grade magic to injure it, to see if Chu Tian could heal injuries caused by 9th grade magic. If he could, it meant Chu Tian at least had the strength of a saint priest and could participate in the Dragon Emperor's medical conference. If he couldn't, then perhaps. These are injuries caused by 9th grade water attribute magic. Chu Tian said thoughtfully, the skin wounds can be healed immediately, but what? The bones? Hearing that they could be healed immediately, Fat Lada seemed to trust Chu Tian more. Don't worry about the bones, just heal the outside. Healing just a portion of the 9th grade magic injuries on the skin could prove Chu Tian's strength. As for whether the thunder eagle lived or died, Fat Lada didn't care. The thunder eagle, though barely clinging to life, heard Chu Tian and Fat Lada talking, and weakly spoke, just relieve the pain. Let me die without pain. From the moment it fell into Fat Lada's hands, the thunder eagle knew its life was over. Although it knew it would surely die, the swollen, rotting areas on its skin prevented it from even dying peacefully. Thus, its greatest wish before death was for Chu Tian to alleviate its pain. The thunder eagle's tragic fate and Fat Lada's cruelty ignited Chu Tian's veterinarian's instincts. Humph. It's just broken bones. With me here, you won't die. Hearing Chu Tian's words, Fat Lada's eyes widened in astonishment, and he said stunned, you can make it fully recover? Are you a 10th grade professional? Chu Tian's priestcraft on this continent and Earth's medical techniques differed in nature. Priestcraft borrowed magic power to activate life potential, causing the body to recover to its best state. Therefore, high-level priestcraft could revive the dead. However, this technique also had a drawback. For injuries that did not involve enhancing life potential, priestcraft would be ineffective. Just like when Chu Tian was injured by an 8th grade magical beast, the external wounds were easily healed by high-level priests of the empire, but the paralysis due to blood clots could not be treated by priests. To explain, priestcraft could activate Chu Tian's life potential, helping the wounds heal quickly, but how could it treat blood clots? It's feared that mobilizing a large amount of life potential to treat it would only worsen the blood clots. The thunder eagle's injuries were similar. On the continent, there was only one way to treat broken bones: set the broken fragments back together, then use priestcraft to accelerate bone growth, making the two broken bone segments rejoin. But the thunder eagle's entire skeletal system was shattered, broken by 9th grade magic. To mend each segment would require an immense amount of magic, enough to exhaust a saint priest. If that were all, it wouldn't have astonished Fat Lada. But Fat Lada knew how strong he had struck, some important bones had been utterly pulverized. Without bones, what good would it do for you, Chu Tian, to activate any amount of potential? Could you regenerate bones for the thunder eagle? It's like having no soil, no matter how much fertilizer you apply, you can't grow a tree. But Chu Tian didn't know that Fat Lada was thinking so much. He narrowed his eyes and calmly replied, if the thunder eagle's bones are gone, then create new ones. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 46, Veterinarian is a Promising Career, Part 2. Recreate a whole new skeleton for the thunder eagle? Ha 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 ha. Fat Lada seemed to have heard the funniest joke ever, bursting into loud laughter. Do you think you are a god? Create a new skeleton? Not to mention Fat Lada had never heard of such a thing, even in the history of the continent, this joke had never appeared. Even in the ancient times, 10,000 years ago, when peak powerhouses were as numerous as autumn leaves, they couldn't do it. Humph. You'll see in a moment. With that, Chu Tian no longer paid attention to the cold-blooded Fat Lada, turning to the Thunder Eagle. I want to replace your entire skeleton. Do you dare to try? You dare to replace it. I also dare to try. The Thunder Eagle stubbornly looked at Chu Tian. At most, I'll die. Good. Chu Tian had now completely shed his charlatan demeanor from the Huan Thursday continent and returned to being an Earth veterinarian. Now I'll put you into a coma first. Saying that, Chu Tian pulled out a scroll of slumber. There was nothing like anesthetic on the continent, but there was magic that caused slumber. And it was far more effective. I don't need this. The Thunder Eagle refused Chu Tian's attempt to put it to sleep. I want to witness you create the greatest myth on this continent with my own eyes. Then prepare to receive a divine miracle. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes, then shouted loudly, Fat Lada. Cast fire attribute defense over this entire area. Chu Tian, as a veterinarian, radiated immense confidence, suddenly exuding an irresistible authority. Fat Lada subconsciously followed Chu Tian's command. Taking a fire attribute scroll from his magic ring, Chu Tian forcefully threw it onto the Thunder Eagle. Immediately, a sky-high flame engulfed the entire room. Amidst the fierce burning fire, Chu Tian retrieved all his surgical instruments, a scalpel, hemostatic forceps, magic needles, sutures, and some magic crystal items. A moment later, when Chu Tian had prepared everything, the work of sterilizing the room and the Thunder Eagle was also complete. This is your spine. Chu Tian fiddled in the flames, simultaneously cutting open the Thunder Eagle's chest, and gently explaining to it, the skeleton is shattered, I will use a 9th grade magic crystal scroll to replace it. Saying that, Chu Tian again pulled out a softened magic crystal, and wrapped it with a precious 9th grade scroll. The fierce flames devoured everything. In the firelight, the scroll was reduced to ashes, but a mysterious magic pattern remained on the crystal. Now I will replace your spine. Watch carefully. The Thunder Eagle's body continuously twitched. From the inside out, it had become a sea of fire, but it proudly watched Chu Tian cut the bloody flesh from the bone, then place the crystal inside, and then gently stitch the surrounding muscles with a needle and thread. The gentle voice once again rang out, as if speaking to a lover, all right. The spine has been replaced. Next are the ribs. For the crystals here, I will use the strongest earth attribute scroll for defense. From the removed rib, then came the replacement of similarly shaped crystals. Although intense, agonizing pain overwhelmed its spirit, the Thunder Eagle believed that Chu Tian could create a miracle that had not appeared in 10,000 years. Moreover, each segment of the crystal bone, reinforced with magic, would absolutely be better than the previous ones. Thank you, sir. The Thunder Eagle said. Choked, but Chu Tian seemed not to hear, still immersed in the surgery. Next is your wing bone. The soft voice flowed like water, I will use the fastest wind attribute scroll. Next are the thigh bones, this time using a water attribute scroll. The shins are gone? Then use a light attribute scroll and magic crystals to replace them. A day and a night passed. The flames continued to burn throughout. Everyone on a Kolap mountain was startled. Unconsciously, the open space outside Chu Tian's room was surrounded by giant dragons of various colors. Standing right above them were En-La and Dragon Emperor Alisi Tuada, who had transformed into human form, beside him. En-La Xiansheng. The Dragon Emperor's voice was as calm and noble as his appearance, though his tone was a little hoarse. Did Fat Lapdyke NAC really do it? Although I can see the future, I cannot speak. En-La maintained his charlatan demeanor. Even the Dragon Emperor was no exception. However, the Dragon Emperor knew En-La never lied. If he didn't speak, he naturally had his reasons. Cough cough. Then will Fat Lapdyke NAC cure my illness? Saying that, the Dragon Emperor coughed violently several times. Soon, you will have the answer. En-La frowned, his eyes serious as he replied to the Dragon Emperor, then stepped back a few paces. Although En-La did not give the Dragon Emperor a direct answer, his actions were the most concrete answer to the Dragon Emperor. This place no longer needs me, I'm returning to the Great Grassland. Haha, you're still the same, you know everything but say nothing. The Dragon Emperor watched En-La's retreating figure, smiling. He had no other choice when it came to his old friend of over 100 years. If Fat Lapdike NAC cures you, then reward him handsomely. En-La left his final words, then vanished from everyone's sight. Reward him handsomely? Dragon Emperor Alici Tuada was a little puzzled. En-La told him to treat Fat Lapdike NAC well? Could it be that he would still need him in the future? Or would he threaten him? Even if he truly replaced the Thunder Eagle's bones, it would only prove his medical skill surpassed that of a saint priest. Although he didn't know how he did it, based on Zich DM's report, Fat Lapdike NAC was completely magic deficient. Such a person, should a 10th grade Dragon Emperor curry favor with him? Although he didn't understand En-La's meaning, the Dragon Emperor still remembered his words. Chu Tian had not closed his eyes for a day and a night, but his mind was now very clear, focusing intently on the surgery. Many fire attribute scrolls had been used. Fat Lada no longer knew how many times he had reinforced the defensive magic. But the 9th grade giant dragon, Fat Lada, had gone from initial contempt to shock, and finally, his mind was completely blank, mechanically watching Chu Tian operate, his hands dancing in the flames, then replacing shattered bone fragments with magic crystals. Only the agonizing Thunder Eagle stared intently at Chu Tian's scalpel. Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect my wing bones to be so ugly. They're not as beautiful as the ribs. Chu Tian was completely immersed in a state of oblivious reality. Your skull isn't injured. That's right, if your skull were shattered, you wouldn't be alive now, but... Chu Tian's surgical knife suddenly paused, like an artist meticulously creating his masterpiece. But your body's bones have been reinforced with magic, this ordinary skull cannot be kept. His left hand, burning in the flames, suddenly scratched his head. Chu Tian racked his brains, can't think of anything. Then just add one of each type of scroll. Saying that, Chu Tian gently cut open the Thunder Eagle's scalp. The flames instantly spread to its head. Just at this moment, Chu Tian took out a batch of scrolls from his magic ring and covered the Thunder Eagle's head with them. Then the scrolls were all burned away. Having persisted until now, the Thunder Eagle, who had never groaned, suddenly let out a tragic cry. Its bone-white skull shot out a 9-colored strange light, instantly covering the surrounding flames. The light refused to extinguish but shattered the ceiling, pierced through a Kolap mountain, and shot straight into the chaotic world outside. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 47, Veterinarian is a Promising Career, Part 3, Mutated Magical Beast, Indeed a Mutated Magical Beast. The light had vanished long ago, but Dragon Emperor Alici Tuada still looked up at the sky, mumbling to himself, to raise a magical beast's grade, father, didn't you say only gods could do that? Inside the room, Chu Tian's surgery had ended. After applying several bottles of special magic medicine, the Thunder Eagle's body was perfectly restored, though with some changes. Its body, originally 2 meters long, had grown to over 5 meters. Its wings had retracted, so it was unclear how much larger they had become. Its pale purple feathers had turned ink black. Its 2 eyes, like electric lights, emitted unusual rays. Its eagle beak curved downwards like a crescent moon, with a small, pitch-black groove beneath it, giving others a chilling sensation. Praise the goddess of life. Elder Fat Lada, the Thunder Eagle has now been cured by me. Chu Tian was stepping out of the operating area, returning to his charlatan demeanor, smiling with narrowed eyes. However, a magical pet injured like this, its master like you must take responsibility, haha. He is not my master. The Thunder Eagle looked coldly at Fat Lada, suddenly feeling that his dragon's might was no longer terrifying. Haha. Fat Lada gave a few dry laughs, awkwardly explaining, I captured you, so naturally you are my magical pet. However, I am now giving you to Mr. Fat Lapdyke NAC. Fat Lada didn't know why, but he suddenly felt the Thunder Eagle's eyes send chills down his spine. This made even a 9th grade powerhouse like him uncomfortable. Although Fat Lada had only just reached the 9th grade, for a magical beast to make him uncomfortable, it would probably have to be 9th grade itself. Thinking of this, and recalling how he had treated the Thunder Eagle, Fat Lada immediately made a wise decision. Haha, honored Mr. Fat Lapdyke NAC, you have cured the Thunder Eagle, so I will offer it to you as thanks. Shameless. He didn't expect anyone to be even more shameless than himself. So Tian cursed inwardly, but outwardly, he happily accepted Fat Lada's offer. It's truly thanks to you, elder brother, haha, I just wonder if the Thunder Eagle agrees? Saying this, So Tian looked towards his patient. My life was saved by you, so it will also be yours from now on. The Thunder Eagle responded resolutely. Praising the goddess of life. A good worker indeed. Working for free, and asking for no money, So Tian felt that losing those scrolls was truly worth it. However, Marquis so naturally couldn't be stingy with his magical pets. What do you like to eat most? What do you want to do most? I said, I don't need anything. The Thunder Eagle understood So Tian's meaning, resolutely refusing his offer. This is an order. You must answer. So Tian showed no mercy, asking sternly. Reporting, Master, I like wild boars the most. What I want to do most is contribute to Master. The Thunder Eagle stood upright, answering So Tian's question like a soldier. Wild boars? Like Hanma. That's easy, from now on, 200 wild boars every day. Plus 200 gold coins. This is also an order. You must accept it. So Tian did not hesitate to confirm the Thunder Eagle's treatment. This standard was not very high. Given that the Thunder Eagle could contend with Fat Lada's aura, it was absolutely worth it. Thank you. The Thunder Eagle was a little choked up. Most wild boars on the continent were raised by humans, and the Thunder Eagle couldn't do work beneath itself to steal food from others. So, although its days as a 7th grade magical beast weren't starving, it couldn't eat wild boars every day. So Tian's treatment immediately touched the Thunder Eagle, who was accustomed to hardship. Haha, what's there to thank for? All my magical beasts receive such treatment. You'll know when you see them later. The treatment had been discussed, and So Tian then remembered that his subordinate's abilities had not yet been reconfirmed. Your appearance is not the same as before, so what is your current strength? The Thunder Eagle now thanked So Tian from the bottom of its heart. After being modified by Master, although I don't know what happened, I feel my strength has increased greatly. The Thunder Eagle frowned and thought for a moment, then checked its body again, after which it said in a disbelieving tone of surprise, 9th grade. I have become a 9th grade magical beast. Master. You are truly great. Never before has a magical beast been able to raise its grade like this, yet you were able to help me do it. The Thunder Eagle was almost mad with joy, but it immediately composed itself. Thank you, Master. Praising the goddess of life, he actually had a 9th grade magical beast. So Tian, in his giddy excitement, vaguely recalled his surgical process, but his mind was blank. He basically couldn't figure out the reason for the Thunder Eagle's great advancement. Forget it, I'll research it later. So Tian discovered something even more important. So, can you demonstrate some of your power? Okay, let's go outside, it's too small in here. The Thunder Eagle, now over 5 meters tall, was almost touching the ceiling. If it experimented in this situation, it might demolish this dragon clan house. Chapter 48, a Machi. So Tian used a communication stone to inform Kolaku, then sat on the Thunder Eagle and flew out of a Kolap mountain. Your speed is incredible. Several times faster than Boeing 747. So Tian, clutching its feathers with both hands, praised the Thunder Eagle. The sensation of soaring like lightning through the sky was indeed not bad. But the Thunder Eagle asked, puzzled, what is Boeing 747? How strange, such an unusual name was the first time it had heard of it. Moreover, the Thunder Eagle had something else it hadn't said: if it weren't afraid of harming Chu Tian, its speed could increase many times over. After all, the Thunder Eagle's speed was already the fastest among flying magical beasts on this continent, not to mention it had now been upgraded to 9th grade by Chu Tian. It's also my magical pet, originally a 7th grade Chu Tian Yun K. Chu Tian proudly explained, Boeing 747 is the name I gave it. So it's a Chu Tian Yun K. Master, do you have other magical pets? The Thunder Eagle wanted to know a little about its new companions. There's also a K-47, Han Ma, plus 8 Fei Mao 2A and several hundred wild wolves. I'm not sure of the exact number. Chu Tian was a little embarrassed. Although he didn't particularly like the wild wolves, and didn't even bother to name them, they were still his magical pets. Not knowing the exact number he owned was truly unacceptable. The Thunder Eagle was somewhat bewildered, on one hand by the number of Chu Tian's magical beasts, and on the other by their strange names, apart from the wild wolves. What kind of horse is Han Ma? Why have I never heard of this horse species? What is a K-47? What are Fei Mao 2A? Are they as fast as me? Alas! Communicating with magical beasts from another world was truly difficult. Chu Tian patiently explained the origins of those names to the Thunder Eagle. Humph. If I see that Ba Si Deng again, I will kill him for master. The Thunder Eagle, hearing that Ba Si Deng dared to ambush and kill its master, immediately flared with anger. Chu Tian was extremely satisfied with the Thunder Eagle's reaction. Humph. A mere 8th grade sword saint was hardly worth bothering with now, was he? Oh, and one more thing. After introducing all his pets, Chu Tian added, I also have a little dog named Xiao Bai. It's your boss. From now on, when I'm not around, you must listen to it. Yes, master. The Thunder Eagle accepted without hesitation. Its loyalty to Chu Tian was absolute. It would execute even such an absurd command without question. It was probably the only 9th grade magical beast on the continent willing to obey a small dog. The time spent talking between human and eagle was enough to take them out of the Eco Lap mountain area and into the Transmigrated. I'm ready. We can start. The Thunder Eagle hovered in midair, awaiting Chu Tian's command. At the same time, the small groove beneath its beak turned pitch black, and faint magic lights flickered within. Begin. Chu Tian gave the order. A sharp, ear-splitting sound emanated from the Thunder Eagle's beak. Initially, it was just 2 sounds, but the frequency gradually increased. Simultaneously, with each pft, a ray of magical light shot out from the small groove beneath its beak. The first ray was red, fire attribute magic. But the second ray turned pale blue, water attribute magic. The third ray was earth attribute yellow, the fourth was wind attribute green. Occasionally, there were also a few black rays. These were probably from Chu Tian accidentally using Ba Bak Tat's dark magic scrolls on it. Finally, Chu Tian was astonished to discover that almost all types of magic were being unleashed simultaneously from the Thunder Eagle's mouth. The light beams became faster and faster, eventually forming a massive vortex. The surface of the Transmigrated, under the bombardment of dense layers of magic from various attributes, violently trembled, enduring the fate of being scorched into dry earth. Finally, a square area of dry, cracked land, over 100 meters wide, appeared on the ground. Master, I've just advanced in grade. I'm not used to using my power yet. I can only do this much. The Thunder Eagle said dejectedly. Praise the goddess of life. Chu Tian clicked his tongue. This wasn't even its strongest state? A 9th grade magical beast was truly terrifying. His astonishment having passed, Chu Tian quickly patted his chest to calm his beating heart. Then, he put on his charlatan demeanor. At the same time, thinking of Xiao Bai, AK-47, Boeing 747, and also Han Ma and the 8 Fei Mao 2A at the foot of a Eco Lap mountain, he shivered slightly, in the name of the goddess, I bestow upon the Thunder Eagle a new name Amachi, asterisk. Then from now on, I am Amachi. The Thunder Eagle, no, Amachi, happily accepted its new name without hesitation. Obeying all of Chu Tian's commands was its duty, which naturally included accepting a strange name. Good. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and patted Amachi's broad back. Such an obedient ninth-grade magical beast was truly satisfying. That's right, a ninth-grade magical beast can transform into a human form. What will you be like when you transform into a human? Chu Tian's magical beasts all shared one characteristic: they were tall and large. Amachi was no exception now. This was a nuisance. Chu Tian didn't want to lock his magical beasts in a mysterious space, only summoning them when needed. But he also couldn't go everywhere with such colossal pets, so he definitely needed a smaller magical beast that could always be by his side to protect his safety. And Amachi, being able to transform into a human form, was the best choice. But Amachi disappointed Chu Tian. I've just reached 9th grade. I can't transform into human form in a short time. Saying that, Amachi saw Chu Tian look a little disappointed, so it added, at most, half a year. In half a year, I'll be able to. Half a year? It's not too long, Chu Tian could still wait that long. Then I'll wait another half a year. Chu Tian and Amachi flew back to a Kolap mountain, but were stopped by Kolaku, who rushed to the platform outside the mountain gate. Mr. Fatlapdyke NAC, please wait a moment. The news of Chu Tian replacing Amachi's bones had shaken the entire dragon clan. Powerhouses in this place received respect, so Kolaku's attitude towards Chu Tian had also changed. Excuse me, according to regulations, your magical pet cannot enter a Kolap mountain. Humph. On what grounds? I just came out from there. Before Chu Tian could answer, Amachi couldn't help but speak, spreading its wings, its angry gaze sweeping across Kolaku. Blocking even the entrance, did this small 8th grade azure dragon want to provoke a 9th grade magical beast? No. I don't mean that. Kolaku smiled bitterly, helpless. The aura of the mutated Thunder Eagle in front of him was indeed something he couldn't contend with. Before, you were brought in by Elder Fat Lada, so there was no problem. But now your master is Mr. Fatlapdyke NAC. Humph. So that's why I can't enter? Amachi glared angrily at Kolaku, flapping its wings forcefully, sending a gust of wind against Kolaku's cheeks. At the same time, the small groove beneath its beak began to emit magical lights. Mr. Fatlapdyke NAC, please see. Kolaku looked at Chu Tian, who was sitting on Amachi's back. If this mutated Thunder Eagle truly wanted to charge in, he would be powerless, so he had to seek Chu Tian's help. Please let your magical pet stay at the residence below the mountain, alright? This is, after all, a rule of the Dragon Clan. Hearing the threatening tone in Kolaku's voice, Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and smiled, but it was not yet time to offend the Dragon Clan. Amachi, go down. Yes. Amachi obeyed the command, gently flying to Kolaku's side. After Chu Tian climbed onto the giant dragon's back, it shot a glance at Kolaku. Humph. I'll remember you. Then it vanished like a flash of lightning. Asterisk, Amachi, Apache name of a fighter jet, name of a Native American tribe, name of a web server. I think Amachi here is likely the name of a fighter jet. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 49, The Silent Conference. After being brought back to his temporary accommodation by Kolaku, Chu Tian could no longer hold on. The day and night surgery had completely exhausted his energy. Moreover, he had flown out of a Kolap mountain with Amachi for half a day, which caused Chu Tian, a person without any battle chi or magic, to collapse onto the bed as soon as he entered his room. Chu Tian slept for 2 consecutive days to recover his strength. When he woke up, the Kolap Mountain Medical Conference had officially begun. In reality, the conference was scheduled to start half a month later, but the Dragon Emperor's illness and NLA's suggestion prompted Alisi Tuada to convene the consultation earlier than planned. In these 2 days, several more people arrived at a Kolap mountain. As for the others who had received invitations, they couldn't make it in time, probably due to the long journey or having met the same fate as Chu Tian, though they weren't as lucky to escape disaster as Chu Tian. At the peak within a Kolap mountain, Dragon Emperor Alisi Tuada's palace served as the venue for this medical conference. In the spacious secret chamber of the palace, a crystal round table over 10 meters in diameter and several crystal chairs were arranged. Besides these, there was nothing else. All the medical experts and the Dragon Emperor were seated around the round table. This place felt like an operating room. Chu Tian surveyed the surroundings of the secret chamber. The pure white jade walls were spotless, even the floor was made of milky white crystal. A massive magic crystal was set in the ceiling, diffusing soft light. Cough cough. The Dragon Emperor was about to speak, but couldn't help but cough a few times. After regaining his breath, Alisi Tuada gently patted his chest and said, "Thank you all for accepting the invitation and coming to diagnose me. Your Majesty the Dragon Emperor is too polite. Serving your Majesty is my honor." The speaker was Chu, sitting opposite the Dragon Emperor. He was a 9th grade Holy Dragon Knight of the Loitu Empire. Since he and Tap Nap too both held the Dragon Knight profession, Chu Tian paid him a few more points of attention. One could see that Chu was a true iron-blooded soldier, his sharp aura like a drawn blade carrying a hint of murderous intent, revealing his formidable strength. Chu's title of Holy Dragon Knight was entirely real. Not only did he possess a 9th grade ice attribute giant dragon, but his own strength also reached 9th grade. The two combined were absolutely a terrifying force. The knight profession was determined by the knight himself and his mount. As long as one of them reached 9th grade and the other reached 8th grade, they could become a Holy Dragon Knight. Therefore, Tap Nap too only needed to strive to become an 8th grade professional, then he and Zich DM could become top powerhouses on the continent. However, even then, Tap Nap too would still not be a match for Chu, because although Zich DM could potentially match Chu's giant dragon, Tap Nap 2's personal strength was still far inferior. Respected Knight Chu, you must be familiar with the Dragon Clan, so you must have a way to cure His Majesty the Dragon Emperor. An elderly monk, waiting for Chu to finish speaking, gently flattered him, "Haha, Mr. Ha Bo's mysterious power is also not simple. I still have much to learn from you." Humility was a fundamental virtue of knights, and Chu displayed this very well. However, his rigid, steel-like voice slightly altered the flavor of this humility. Chu Tian silently listened to the two praising each other, inwardly cursing, "These two shameless fools. In front of so many powerhouses, you dare to flatter each other, as if you consider no one else." Chu Tian secretly observed the other two. Indeed, Elder He Ershi of the elf race, sitting to the Dragon Emperor's left, was changing her expression. However, my lamb next to her remained completely unperturbed. "Continue flattering," Chu Tian prayed. Chu came from the Loitu Empire, while Ha Bo was from the Tian Hai Kingdom. Both countries were bitter rivals of Kai Sa. The more people they offended, the happier Chu Tian would be. But Chu was not as foolish as Chu Tian imagined. After speaking with Ha Bo, he stood up and said to everyone, "All of you here are the best medical experts on the continent. I believe I can learn much from you, especially from Mr. Fatlapdyke Nac." Chu suddenly smiled at Chu Tian, then placed his right hand over his chest, bowing in a standard knight's salute. "You are the strongest priest on the continent, so you must surely be able to cure His Majesty the Dragon Emperor. The matter with the Thunder Eagle a few days ago is deeply imprinted in my memory. I fear none of you here can compare to Mr. Fatlapdyke Nac, can you? I am the strongest priest on the continent, so what are the others? They can't compare to me? So do I need to kill them to protect the dignity of the strong?" Chu Tian looked at the changing expressions of He Ershi and Ha Bo, narrowed his eyes, and replied with a smile, "Praise the goddess of life. I am just an ordinary priest. And I am here on behalf of my old teacher and Dong and I. As long as I don't shame the old man, I will be satisfied." The enmity between the Kaisa and Loi-Tu empires had spread to every corner of both nations. Even at such an important conference, Colinzi did not forget to cause trouble for Chu Tian, the chief court priest of Kaisa. However, he hadn't expected Chu Tian to be so cunning, using Ndong Ni as a shield, indicating that he was merely representing his teacher. If Colinzi wanted to make things difficult for Chu Tian now, it would mean making things difficult for Ndong Ni, which would also mean he intended to offend all priests on the continent. Praise the goddess of life. Your knightly virtue is so perfect it astounds me. It seems this rumor is indeed false. Others came, so he had to return the courtesy. Chu Tian noticed that elder He of the elf race had a rather fiery temper and decided to use her to provoke Colinzi. Haha, in Bongboi City, someone said that night Colinzi bought a lot of elf female slaves from the Fan-Mat-Tu family. This is truly amusing. This was something Chu Tian deliberately fabricated, but he had his reasons. Buying elf female slaves was something almost every high-ranking noble on the continent had done. After all, the allure of elf beauties was hard to resist. And Chu Tian dragging in the infamous name of the slave-trading Fan-Mat-Tu family would undoubtedly increase its credibility. Colinzi. Is this true? Buying and selling elf beauties was very common, but discussing this in front of an elf beauty like she made it abnormal. Silence, all of you. The Dragon Emperor naturally saw the gunpowder-filled atmosphere among everyone, so he grew angry. He coldly glared at the two of them. Humph. This is a Kolap mountain. Not the battlefield of Kaisa and Loi-Tu. A 10th-grade Dragon Emperor had reason to be angry and the power to deter everyone. In an instant, the air in the secret chamber seemed to be sucked out. Everyone felt breathless under the immense pressure. At this moment, the magic god My Lamb, who had not spoken since the beginning of the conference, began to speak. Your Majesty. Let Colinzi and the elf race resolve their own issues. The most important thing now is to treat your body. I'll overlook it this time. Now I'll tell you about my illness, but... Alisi Tuada's anger subsided, but his expression immediately turned serious. A chilling voice emanated from his mouth. If anyone dares to reveal my illness to the outside. The temperature in the secret chamber suddenly dropped to an extreme, the air seemed to freeze, then he should prepare to face death at the hands of the Dragon Clan. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 50, The Dragon Emperor's Illness, Part 1. The Dragon Emperor warned the powerhouses expressionlessly. In that murderous atmosphere, everyone's hearts pounded in terror. A drop of sweat ran down Chu Tian's chin. Praising the goddess of life. Chu Tian finally felt the terrifying power of a 10th-grade magical beast. Without any action, without unleashing any magic or battle chi, just a flicker of killing intent in his heart created an atmosphere that made everyone tremble. A 10th grade in a rage. The world turns upside down. This was a proverb on the Huan Thursday continent, and it was thoroughly proven by the Dragon Emperor. Everyone's strength under the Dragon Emperor's pressure was undoubtedly revealed. Chu Tian's throat constricted, he couldn't utter a word, only letting the cold sweat pour down his body like rain. Ha Bo and she fared a little better, but their legs trembled continuously. Colinzi took a deep breath, barely managing a smile in front of the Dragon Emperor. Only My Lamb. Still calm as if the sky were falling, still with a gentle voice, she said, Your Majesty the Dragon Emperor, rest assured. Everyone here will uphold the dignity of a powerhouse. Powerhouse? Chu Tian trembled, glancing at everyone, and inwardly said to My Lamb, in front of the Dragon Emperor, perhaps only she is worthy of being called a powerhouse. Indeed, under the Dragon Emperor's killing intent, among the few people, only My Lamb could calmly respond. And only she maintained a bright smile on her refined and elegant face. Looking at My Lamb's beautiful face, which appeared to be only about 30 years old, Chu Tian secretly clicked his tongue. So young, yet possessing such terrifying strength. He truly wondered how she cultivated. At this moment, Colinzi had gradually recovered from the pressure. Your Majesty. If anyone reveals today's matter, I will kill him for you. Saying this, he even glanced at Chu Tian, clearly implying that Fat Lap Dyke NAC was the least trustworthy. Haha, others wouldn't do such a shameless thing, but, Ha Bo, though still tense, would not miss an opportunity to attack someone from Kaisa. I just don't know if Mr. Fat Lap Dyke NAC can do it. Although the relationship between the Tian High Kingdom and Loi Tu was not particularly close, the representative of Kaisa, Chu Tian, made them stand together on the same front. The two spoke, one after another, trying to frame Chu Tian, only regretting that the Dragon Emperor couldn't kill him immediately. Enough. We are here to treat the Dragon Emperor. My lamb did not wait for the Dragon Emperor to get angry but reacted first. She slammed her hand on the table and shouted, I trust Fat Lap Dyke NAC. If he reveals today's matter, then you can come and settle the score with me. Magic God my lamb, please calm down. Kulin Si might not fear Chu Tian, and might not fear my lamb, but when Chu Tian and my lamb stood together, the power they represented was not something the Loi Tu Empire could contend with. Therefore, he chose to temporarily concede. I did not intend to diminish Mr. Fat Lap Dyke NAC's honor, I was merely concerned for him. Kulin Si conceded, and Ha Bo looked awkwardly at Chu Tian, having nothing to say. A weak country has no diplomacy. Chu Tian felt fortunate to have joined a nation hailed as the invincible Kaisa Iron Cavalry. If not for the 300,000 Kaisa Iron Cavalry constantly threatening the existence of the Ai Nisam Kingdom, my lamb probably wouldn't risk offending the Dragon Emperor to help him. Looking gratefully at my lamb, Chu Tian suddenly discovered, my lamb's attitude towards him was incredibly close, with a feeling like a gentle mother looking at her child. Chu Tian shook his head slightly, chasing away that strange feeling, then said to the Dragon Emperor, please rest assured, Your Majesty the Dragon Emperor. I swear by my faith in the Goddess of Life, I will absolutely not reveal your illness to anyone. For a priest, swearing in the name of the Goddess of Life was the most solemn oath. However, for Chu Tian, a charlatan who fabricated quotes from the Goddess of Life all day. Following Chu Tian, everyone else swore the most poisonous oaths to assure the Dragon Emperor. Then the Dragon Emperor slowly described his symptoms. The Dragon Emperor's description was extremely complex, a series of magic terms and specialized vocabulary that made Chu Tian dizzy. Thinking carefully all day, Chu Tian finally summarized the Dragon Emperor's illness in veterinary terms, a cold, fever, cough, and swollen throat. Praising the Goddess of Life. Such a minor illness, yet it stirred the tranquility of the entire continent? And threatening him with murderous intent? You, motherfucker, it's like you're just casually chatting. Chu Tian, though his face was serious as he listened to the Dragon Emperor's explanation, was inwardly cursing him continuously. After cursing for a while, Chu Tian suddenly noticed that something was amiss. Logically, after hearing the Dragon Emperor's illness, even if the experts present didn't dare to get angry, they should at least be crying and laughing, shouldn't they? But they were all frowning, and even my lamb, usually the most composed, showed a serious expression for the first time. Praising the Goddess of Life. I was too foolish. Seeing everyone's expressions, Chu Tian understood that he had made a big mistake. A cough and sore throat were minor ailments on Earth. For ordinary people on the Huan Thursday continent, it was also common. But if it was on the Dragon Emperor's body, then the meaning was different. The Dragon Clan's bodies were not just for show, but apart from being injured by enemies in battle, the rest of the time, they basically wouldn't suffer from any illness. But now, not only was a dragon sick, but this dragon was also the king of dragons. This made the problem very serious. A 10th grade magical beast getting sick? This sounded like an incredibly ridiculous story, but the Dragon Emperor was indeed sick, and it was a cold and sore throat. The Dragon Clan was powerful precisely because they possessed dragon language magic that could dominate the continent. How was dragon language magic unleashed? Naturally, by their mouths and throats. But now the Dragon Emperor's throat was inflamed. If the Dragon Emperor were just an ordinary giant dragon, it wouldn't be a big deal. Even if he were 9th grade, it wouldn't have too much of an impact. But Alisi Tuada was the king of the Dragon Clan. In this Akolap mountain region, where strength was revered, if he couldn't cast magic, what kind of dragon emperor could he be? Moreover, those who wandered the world, who could not have enemies? The ones qualified to be the dragon emperor's enemies were probably only 10th grade magical beasts. If Elisi Tuada's enemies discovered at this time that he had become a nominal cripple, perhaps by the next day, this entire Ako-Lap mountain would have turned into a giant pot for cooking monitor lizards. Furthermore, this illness of mine has been treated by many high-level priests and dark magic masters. The Dragon Emperor's voice was terribly hoarse, but it has had no effect whatsoever. Priestcraft stimulating life potential was ineffective. Dark magic specializing in poisons was also useless. It seemed the Dragon Emperor's illness was not simple. So Tian secretly calculated, for an ordinary cold and sore throat, just find a priest to mobilize a little life potential, and it would heal. Even if a priest couldn't cure it, a dark magic master like Babak Tat could use poison to kill the cold-causing bacteria and solve the problem. But now, both methods were useless. It couldn't be healed normally, and killing the pathogens didn't work. The symptoms of this illness, in So Tian's knowledge, could only be explained by one disease. Book 2, The Medical Conference at Ako-Lap Mountain Chapter 51, The Dragon Emperor's Illness, Part 3. Cancer. Or more precisely, nasopharyngeal carcinoma. This was So Tian's preliminary diagnosis of the Dragon Emperor's illness. Only cancer could explain the Dragon Emperor's symptoms. Dark magic couldn't solve it because it wasn't caused by toxins. As for priestcraft, it probably wouldn't just fail to cure the Dragon Emperor, but might even worsen his condition. The Dragon Emperor's life potential was immense. If such life potential were mobilized, how many cancer cells would proliferate? Wouldn't that be adding fuel to the fire? Although So Tian had a preliminary conclusion, he remained silent, looking at everyone, not vocalizing his thoughts. After all, the patient this time was the Dragon Emperor, and So Tian dared not gamble his small life. Cancer was very common in Earth's animals, but there was no known cure. Even if So Tian correctly diagnosed the Dragon Emperor with nasopharyngeal carcinoma, what method could he use to treat it? One should know that on Earth, even human nasopharyngeal carcinoma was a terminal illness that baffled medical science, let alone that of the Dragon Emperor of the Huan Thursday continent. After Elisi Tuada described his symptoms, So Tian sat on the crystal chair racking his brains, but the others had already begun to display their skills. Your Majesty. Is there a slightly larger area? The first to stand up was Habo of the Tian High Kingdom. The old monk respectfully looked up at the sky and said, I wish to invite the great heavenly god to treat your body. Habo's profession was very special, he was an ascetic monk. This profession itself had no offensive power, but it possessed the ability to connect spatial passages. According to legends, when a monk's cultivation reached a certain realm, they could not only converse with the heavenly god they worshipped but also temporarily summon high-level magical beasts that were not their own using spatial passages. Therefore, no one on the Huan Thursday continent dared to underestimate this monk profession. A larger area? The Dragon Emperor looked at the sealed secret chamber. It seemed there was indeed an oversight this time. The high-level healing arts of powerhouses were often earth-shattering, and such a small secret chamber was truly insufficient for everyone to perform. Then follow me out here. Changing locations, So Tian was still thinking. When he heard the Dragon Emperor speak, he silently stood up, followed everyone out of the secret chamber, and, transported by several giant dragons, they quickly flew out of Ako-Lap Mountain and landed on an outer peak. Is this place large enough? The peak outside Ako-Lap Mountain was a colossal round platform, with a large hole in the center of the circle, which was the path So Tian's group had just flown up. Mist surrounded the mountaintop, over 1,000 li above sea level, a suitable place for connecting with deities. Your Majesty the Dragon Emperor, it's large enough. Please stand firm. Habo straightened his loose monk robes, then respectfully knelt on the ground, spreading his arms, looking up at the clear sky, and loudly chanted, whisper, whisper, whisper. What was this? A string of incomprehensible incantations that made So Tian unable to think further. He felt like he was hearing some kind of language. To be able to memorize such strange incantations, It seemed the monk profession was indeed formidable. A minute passed. The Dragon Emperor still showed no reaction. 10 minutes, the sky was still clear. An hour later, Alisi Tuada finally lost his patience. Mr. Habo, what's going on? Why isn't your revered heavenly god reacting? This, Habo's old face grew even more withered. He stood up, rubbing his numb legs, and said, perhaps the heavenly god only reacts to his believers. Humph. So I must also believe in your heavenly god? The Dragon Emperor's eyes suddenly flashed, his gaze fixed on Habo. If your majesty the Dragon Emperor is willing, that would be excellent. Although he had angered the Dragon Emperor, the devout Habo did not forget to preach his doctrine. The heavenly god is always merciful to his believers, and your majesty will be no exception. Get out. The Dragon Emperor was furious. With a wave of his hand, Habo's body plummeted down a Kolap mountain like an autumn leaf. What was a 10th grade magical beast? It was someone who possessed divine skills, the domain of invincible powerhouses. If they already had divine skills, then why would they need to believe in gods? The heavenly god in Habo's words, to Alisi Tuada, was merely a powerful individual. On the Huan Thursday continent, the race of gods had long become a legend. The Dragon Emperor was a god. So Tian watched a giant dragon hastily fly down to catch Habo, who was falling through the air, and secretly laughed. Your charlatan act is too foolish. You dared to tell a living god like the Dragon Emperor to believe in your damned heavenly god? Isn't that just seeking death? Your Majesty the Dragon Emperor. I'm sorry, I fear I also have no way to treat your illness. Kulinsi, seeing Habo's outcome, chose to withdraw from the Kolap Mountain Medical Conference. Kulinsi's strength was indeed very strong, and he had many successful experiences in treating giant dragons. But his experience was mostly gained through his own mount. As for a 10th grade Dragon Emperor, he still lacked the confidence for that. If he couldn't cure it, he'd give up. If he ended up like Habo, it would truly be a net loss. I understand, but I still thank you for coming to a Kolap mountain. Dragon Emperor Alisi Tuada showed his regal magnanimity. If one lacked the ability, they could say so, that was not your responsibility, Kulinsi. But if one was like Habo, then they deserved to die. Your Majesty. Please try this. Saying that, Elf Elder Hier she took out a jade green glass bottle and handed it to the Dragon Emperor. This is natural life essence, created by hundreds of our elf race powerhouses from tens of thousands of trees. It can stimulate your life potential to the highest level. Its effect is no less than a saint priest's forbidden spell. The elf race had poured all their heart and soul into curing the Dragon Emperor. It was feared that this small bottle of life essence alone required the entire elf race to mobilize its forces. Since the destruction of the elf kingdom, although the former royalty still had some influence over the elves, to gather enough life essence for one bottle was truly more difficult than ascending to heaven. The Dragon Emperor received the bottle and drank it in one gulp. If this bottle of life essence cures my illness, then I will support the restoration of the elf kingdom. The Dragon Emperor was not foolish. The elf race had paid such a heavy price, absolutely not just out of simple respect for him. Besides this, there must be other demands, and for the fallen elf kingdom, their greatest hope was none other than rebuilding their kingdom. Praising the goddess of life, a treacherous charlatan like So Tian suddenly felt like a rare good person. Of course, this was in comparison to the Dragon Emperor and Hier Shi. Currently, every suitable piece of land for habitation on the continent already had its owner. In this situation, to build an elf kingdom with several million people would surely lead to a bloody storm. Although the two of them didn't care about the lives and deaths of the people on the continent, So Tian still carefully observed the Dragon Emperor's reaction. Because if the effect of the life essence was no different from priestcraft, both stimulating life potential, then if the Dragon Emperor truly had nasopharyngeal carcinoma, upon drinking it, his condition would definitely worsen. If that were the case, it would prove So Tian's diagnosis, and then he could begin to place his bet. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 52, Treatment. Part 1. Roar. A few minutes after drinking the life essence, the Dragon Emperor suddenly let out a low growl, then looked up at the sky, striking his stomach fiercely with both hands. Poof! A mixture of emerald green liquid and golden blood spewed from the Dragon Emperor's mouth. Chu Tian looked at the Dragon Emperor's blood with a pained expression, almost shedding tears. What a waste. Chu Tian's blood could already make him immune to fire, so the Dragon Emperor's blood must surely have many more benefits? A spendthrift. Such a waste. Your medicine is useless. The Dragon Emperor wiped the corner of his mouth, looking coldly at he or she. It only made my condition worse. Your Majesty. I truly don't know. He or she hastily bowed deeply, fearfully explaining to the Dragon Emperor, this bottle of life essence is absolutely genuine. Our elf race would not dare to trifle with your body. Cough cough, all right. No need to say more. Although most of the life essence was spat out, a portion remained in his body. The Dragon Emperor coughed violently for a long time, his face pale, then clutched his chest, and said in a deep voice, the life essence is fine, you are not mistaken. The problem lies with my illness. Your Majesty, after your life potential was stimulated, did it feel like there was something extra in your throat? Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and approached. The side effects of the life essence had partly confirmed his diagnosis, so Chu Tian was now 5 parts confident about the Dragon Emperor's illness. 5 parts? For Chu Tian, that was more than enough, so Chu Tian began his gamble, a big gamble with the fate of Kai Sa and himself at stake. How did you know? The Dragon Emperor looked at Chu Tian in surprise. Many priests and powerhouses during this time had been unable to accurately diagnose his illness, but Chu Tian, in an instant, could describe the changes in his own body. A powerhouse capable of creating miracles was indeed different from ordinary people. Praise the goddess of life. Chu Tian again assumed the guise of a perfect charlatan. Through prolonged practice, the charlatan demeanor Chu Tian now feigned was indistinguishable from Ndongni's aura. Seeing Chu Tian's demeanor, not only did the Dragon Emperor secretly praise him, but my lamb also looked on in stunned admiration. But Chu Tian did not directly answer the Dragon Emperor's question. Instead, he matched his charlatan tone and expression, slowly saying, I have a way to cure your Majesty, however, please transform back into your true form first. All right. I accept your condition. Making a 10th grade Dragon Emperor revert to his giant dragon form was an unreasonable request, because Elisi Tuada only revealed his true form when facing a formidable enemy. But the Dragon Emperor was deceived by Chu Tian's sacred and dignified appearance, coupled with NLA's suggestion and the Amachi incident, so he followed Chu Tian's suggestion and transformed back into his golden giant dragon form. It's not that big, just about the size of Boeing 747. Chu Tian secretly appraised, but outwardly, he said to the Dragon Emperor hovering in the sky, Your Majesty. Can you open your mouth and let me enter your body? Haha. Enter my body? Aren't you afraid I'll eat you? The Dragon Emperor found Chu Tian's proposal amusing. Others feared he would eat them, but today, this fat lapdike NAC dared to proactively ask to enter his mouth. Fat lapdike NAC, even if His Majesty the Dragon Emperor doesn't want to eat you, the power within him can still melt you. My lamb looked at Chu Tian in confusion, her words implying a reprimand. How can you risk your life like this? Why did magic god my lamb care so much about him? Chu Tian didn't understand what about him my lamb found appealing, but he didn't have time to ponder these things. The gamble continued, Your Majesty, don't worry. I just want to examine your throat for a moment. I won't go deep into your body. All right, enter then. The Dragon Emperor descended from the sky, lowered his head, rested his jaw on the ground, then opened his colossal dragon mouth wide. Wait a moment. Chu Tian was about to enter when my lamb suddenly called him back, then pulled out a sky-blue magic staff from behind her back, aiming it at Chu Tian. I'll cast a protective spell on you. Don't. Absolutely not. As soon as he saw my lamb about to cast a protective spell on him, Chu Tian shouted loudly, then grabbed a dragon tooth larger than himself, and hastily rushed into the Dragon Emperor's mouth. Alas! Chu Tian disappeared in an instant. My lamb could only retract her staff, sighing, muttering, and dong and I, why is this child's temper so much like yours? Too dangerous. The plan almost failed. Chu Tian knew my lamb had good intentions by giving him protection, but he couldn't let her ruin the plan he had meticulously created, could he? The Dragon Emperor's head was only about 7 or 8 meters, but Chu Tian, standing on the Dragon Emperor's soft tongue, fumbled around all day to reach the pharyngeal region. Seeing a mass of rotting flesh in the throat, Chu Tian smiled, Your Majesty. I can cure your illness. But please don't speak. If you agree to let me treat you now, please nod. Not letting the Dragon Emperor speak had its reasons. Chu Tian was currently in the Dragon Emperor's throat. If Tuada spoke, there would only be 2 outcomes, either Chu Tian would be eaten, or he would be spat out like saliva. A violent tremor occurred, and Chu Tian knew the Dragon Emperor had agreed, so he confidently dared to examine the rotting mass of flesh. The Dragon Emperor's strength was truly formidable. Even Earth's modern science and technology couldn't stop the spread of this disease, yet he was able to confine it to one spot. This not only alleviated much suffering but also made it easier for Chu Tian to treat. Your Majesty, I'm starting the treatment now. It will probably be very painful. Please endure it. Chu Tian had to warn the Dragon Emperor beforehand. Otherwise, if the Dragon Emperor couldn't bear it and screamed tragically, young Master Chu would find it hard to avoid meeting the goddess of life. That's right, Your Majesty, one more thing. Chu Tian had prepared all his tools and was about to begin when he thought of a most important matter. Please, Your Majesty, remove all throat defenses. Let me know when you've done so. This was, after all, the Dragon Emperor's body. If he didn't cooperate with the Dragon Emperor, even if he called a Machi for help, Chu Tian wouldn't even be able to touch Tuada's skin. This time, the Dragon Emperor didn't respond as quickly as before. After all, Chu Tian was in his most vital spot. If he removed his defenses, and Chu Tian had any ill intentions, then the first 10th grade magical beast on the continent to be killed by a human would appear. Seeing the Dragon Emperor's lack of reaction, Chu Tian understood his concerns. Haha, Your Majesty, rest assured, I am also in your mouth. If I wanted to harm you, I wouldn't be able to escape either. The Dragon Emperor finally chose to trust Chu Tian, or rather, he trusted his old friend NLA's prophetic ability. A slight nod made Chu Tian feel as if the sky and earth were shaking inside his mouth. Tuada had agreed, and Chu Tian began the surgery. First, he took out a few remaining ice attribute scrolls from his magic ring, then held a fire attribute scroll, small in appearance but immense in power, and finally, his exquisite surgical scalpel. Forcefully throwing the ice attribute scroll onto the rotting area, the entire diseased region quickly froze. Chu Tian used the scalpel to dig a small hole in the ice, then inserted a fire attribute scroll into it. Thus, a magical balm was formed in the Dragon Emperor's throat. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 53, Treatment, Part 3. Cancer is caused by the rapid spread of cancerous cells. Earth's medical technology cannot cure it, primarily because it cannot prevent the spread of cancer cells, nor can it completely remove the affected organ. To prevent the spread of cells, in this regard, no matter how profound Chu Tian's medical skills were, he couldn't do it. But what Chu Tian couldn't do, didn't mean the Dragon Emperor couldn't either. At this moment, the Dragon Emperor was relying on the terrifying power of a 10th grade magical beast to control the rotting area, concentrating it in one spot. For him, this was a matter well within the scope of his strength. Thus, Chu Tian could maneuver much more easily. If he couldn't remove an entire trachea, could he not detonate a small chunk of flesh? Thinking this, Chu Tian narrowed his eyes, revealing a sinister smile, as if he saw countless gold coins flying towards him. The last scroll in his magic ring was an incredibly powerful lightning attribute scroll with immense explosive force. Chu Tian meticulously calculated its explosive power relative to his position, then gritted his teeth and threw the scroll. Boom! A heavy explosion echoed within the Dragon Emperor's mouth. From the Dragon Emperor's bulging nerves, one could see the suffering he was enduring. However, in the end, he held back his cries, partly for Chu Tian's safety, and partly because the dignity of a dragon emperor would not allow him to do so. Chu Tian's suffering was no less than the dragon emperor's. Moreover, when the explosion occurred, he deliberately stepped forward a few paces. Thus, not only did the explosion leave Chu Tian dizzy, but shards of ice from the rotting flesh also tore his skin, hitting him hard. In an instant, fresh blood flowed freely from Chu Tian's body. Yet, Chu Tian was delighted in that suffering. He had deliberately not let my lamb cast a protective spell precisely for this moment. Chu Tian's blood could ward off fire, so what about the dragon emperor's? If not for wanting another dragon blood bath, even a pig wouldn't willingly crawl into the mouth of this colossal monitor lizard. Poof, the explosion had ceased, and the rotten mass of flesh had vanished. But from the large wound, a golden blood-like fluid gushed out, not only splashing onto Chu Tian but also penetrating his body through the wounds on his skin. Praising the goddess of life. The plan had gone a little awry. Chu Tian stared blankly as the golden blood-like fluid flowed into his body, feeling a strange sensation from the painful wounds on his body. His mind was blank. He had calculated 100 possibilities, yet he still hadn't anticipated that the ice shards would be sharp enough to tear his skin, and that the Dragon Emperor's blood would replenish the blood he had lost. I just hope there are no adverse effects. Chu Tian prayed anxiously. He had experience with a dragon blood bath once before. It was painful, then he fainted, which was good. But for a dragon to give him a blood transfusion? Who knew if dragon blood and human blood would reject each other? As a veterinarian, Chu Tian understood very well that two different types of blood in the same body would definitely have some consequences. What's going on? Chu Tian confusedly checked his body. The intense pain he expected didn't come. Instead, there was an unusual feeling of comfort, and his body's wounds had completely healed. Could it be that the Dragon Emperor's blood was compatible with his own? Although he knew it was impossible, Chu Tian could only accept that explanation. Standing silently for a long time, Chu Tian finally confirmed that he had no abnormalities, so he was temporarily relieved. If he wasn't going to faint, then in the plan for the Dragon Emperor to heal his own wounds, he would have to personally step in. Chu Tian took out a bottle of magic medicine for staunching blood, about to apply it to the Dragon Emperor's throat, but suddenly discovered that the large wound was healing at an astonishing speed. Praising the goddess of life. The recovery ability of a 10th grade magical beast was truly terrifying. Chu Tian shook his head and sighed. No, wait. Chu Tian suddenly realized a problem. His freshly healed wounds were exactly like the Dragon Emperor's. Dear goddess sister, could it be that I also have the Dragon Emperor's physique now? Chu Tian stumbled out of the Dragon Emperor's mouth, took a deep breath of the fresh air of a Kolap mountain, then narrowed his eyes and smiled at Alici Tuada, Your Majesty the Dragon Emperor. How is your body? Haha. Thank you, Mr. Fat Lapdyke NAC. The Dragon Emperor reverted to human form, laughing heartily and joyfully. I feel that my body has completely recovered. Then reward me quickly. Chu Tian urged inwardly, but still maintained his charlatan demeanor, solemnly saying, Praise the goddess of life. Only with the goddess's blessing could I have had the good fortune to cure you. Chu Tian thought for an entire day and finally decided not to mention that his blood and the Dragon Emperor's blood had merged. Because, for now, this matter seemed to only bring him benefits, without any harm. If he told the Dragon Emperor, even if the Dragon Emperor didn't mind his blood being obtained by a human, Chu Tian had already gained such a huge advantage, his reward might be diminished. The greatest benefit must be obtained. This was in line with Chu Tian's plan. Now I must go to the Supreme Council to announce this news. You all may leave. Saying that, the Dragon Emperor soared into the sky towards a Kolap mountain. But the truth was not as he said. Having been ill for a long time, not only did the Dragon Emperor suffer day and night, but the situation among the elders of the Supreme Council had also begun to destabilize. Therefore, the Dragon Emperor wasn't just announcing news, he was rushing back to clean up the mess. Fat Lapdyke NAC, come to my palace tomorrow. Damn it. Chu Tian cursed inwardly. The Dragon Emperor's hasty departure had startled him. The dragon race was naturally greedy, so Chu Tian almost thought the Dragon Emperor was trying to default on his debt. The Dragon Emperor left, Ha Bo had long since been knocked away, and Ko Lin Si naturally had no face to stay. He called his giant dragon and silently flew back to a Ko Lap mountain. In an instant, only Chu Tian and my lamb remained on the mountaintop. Fat Lapdyke NAC, I am very happy that Ndong Ni has such an outstanding disciple as you. My lamb spoke gently, no, rather, she looked at Chu Tian with overflowing benevolent affection, saying, Ndong Ni, how is he? You know my teacher? Chu Tian found it hard to believe that my lamb, whose appearance was only about 30, and whose mature charm made Chu Tian feel a little flustered, could have any connection with the lowly old charlatan Ndong Ni? In that case, my lamb's concern for him just now was out of respect for Ndong Ni. Didn't he mention me to you? My lamb forced a pained smile, touching her face, then forget it. It's been 30 years. We are both old now. The past should be forgotten. Haha, praise the goddess of life. There's a problem. What kind of person was Chu Tian? How could my lamb's expression escape the notice of such a cunning and deceitful person as him? Though only a few short sentences, Chu Tian's mind had already strung them together into a perfect image. 30 years ago, at a critical moment for his homeland's survival, a handsome saint priest bid farewell to his lover and went to the battlefield, becoming the nation's hero in that war. But he paid a heavy price. The handsome young saint priest instantly transformed into a lowly old man, having no face to meet his lover. So he secluded himself alone in the mountains, trying to restore his appearance. But his lover, due to her formidable strength, retained her youth, and sadly waited for this saint priest to return. Haha, I am so clever. Chu Tian praised himself, but unfortunately, the goddess of life could not tell him, you only guessed half right. Teacher didn't actually mention you, but Chu Tian decided to help Ndong Ni. So he narrowed his eyes again, but what? My lamb asked anxiously. It seemed she had taken the bait. But I saw a wooden statue he carved himself by his bed, and it looks very much like you. Chu Tian said sincerely, though whether that carved statue truly existed was anyone's guess. Haha, he's still the same, likes carving statues. Saying that, my lamb suddenly blushed. Praising the goddess of life. Chu Tian unexpectedly hit the jackpot. I have other matters, I'm leaving first. My lamb left a remark, then hastily departed. Talking about her love life in front of a junior would make anyone embarrassed. Love makes a person's intelligence revert to zero. Chu Tian watched my lamb leave, laughing inwardly, so the old man also has such a story. Haha, now I've got something on him. But my lamb was truly something else. Based on her strength, even the Zich DM he saw every day couldn't compare, yet she was fooled by a statue. A statue. Damn it. I figured out why Zich DM looked so familiar to me. Son of a bitch, in Big Brother Tap Nap 2's training yard, wasn't that beauty statue Zich DM? Chu Tian understood everything now. Ndong Ni and my lamb's twilight romance hadn't been resolved yet, and another bizarre human-beast romance was waiting for him to sort out. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Ko Lap Mountain Chapter 54, The Elf, Part 1. A headache. This was the only feeling Chu Tian experienced right now. Ndong Ni and my lamb's twilight romance would be easy to resolve, he just needed to pull some strings from within, and things would almost certainly fall into place. But what about Big Brother and Zich DM? One must know that Zich DM was a 9th grade magical beast. Although it currently worked for Kai Sa, according to the Dragon Clan's tradition of strength reverence and their prolonged lifespans, it was likely that after Tap Nap 2's death, Zich DM would return to a Ko Lap mountain to become an elder in the Dragon Clan's Supreme Council. In such a situation, the arrogant Dragon Emperor would never allow a future elder to take a lowly human as a mate, especially one whose strength, in his eyes, was not even worth mentioning. Although Chu Tian was willing to become the mount of a 7th grade professional like Tapnap too, this already clearly showed its intentions. But the conflict between the dragon clan's pride and its love for Tapnap too was still a difficult problem to resolve. Alas, it seemed he had to prepare early. Chu Tian helplessly shook his head, called Kola Ku, and flew back to a Kolap mountain. After entering the mountain, Chu Tian did not return directly to his temporary residence but asked Kola Ku to take him to Elder Hierarchy of the elf race. Since he had completed the main mission of curing the Dragon Emperor, he could now begin his second mission, befriending powerhouses from various nations. But now, it seemed the second mission was a bit unfortunate. The Dragon Emperor had convened the medical conference earlier than scheduled, which meant many powerhouses couldn't arrive in time. In the end, only 6 people, including Chu Tian, participated in the conference, and before the conference, the beast race prophet among the 6 quietly left. Looking at the remaining people, my lamb, needless to say, her dual relationship with Kaisa's cavalry and Ndong and I meant Chu Tian didn't need to waste any more effort. As for Kulin Si of the Loi Tu Empire and Ha Bo of the Tian High Kingdom, if Chu Tian dared to offer them gifts, Lo Dik Tam the would probably fly into a rage, immediately flying to a Kolap mountain to skin him alive. Thus, the only remaining person he could befriend was Hierarchy, elder of the elf race. So Chu Tian took gifts worth over 1 million gold coins in his magic ring and went to visit this elf beauty. Is Elder Hierarchy here? Chu Tian knocked on the large, spotless door, then loudly asked, I am Fat Lapdyke NAC, and I wish to discuss something with you. So it's Mr. Fat Lapdyke NAC. Welcome. Hierarchy personally came out to greet him, inviting Chu Tian into the room. Although Chu Tian had cured the Dragon Emperor, which diminished the elf race's life essence, Hierarchy showed no animosity, she merely regretted that the elf kingdom's chances of restoration had lessened. Mr. Fat Lapdyke NAC, is there something you need? Chu Tian seemed not to hear Hierarchy, instead carefully observing the entire room. Elves were a race that loved beauty, so Elder Hierarchy's residence was also neat and clean, with a picturesque view outside the window. Moreover, this room had been meticulously cleaned by its temporary owner, which made Chu Tian feel a little embarrassed. Mr. Fat Lapdyke NAC. What exactly do you want? Seeing that Chu Tian wasn't paying attention to her, but instead admiring the room, Hierarchy was a little pleased. Praise the goddess of life. Chu Tian now seemed to notice Hierarchy, Elder Hierarchy's room is indeed extraordinary, captivating one's heart. What exactly do you want? Hierarchy was now angry. Even if your strength is so great that you cured the Dragon Emperor, you cannot come here to spout nonsense. If you have nothing to say, please leave. Of course I have something to say. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes, chuckling, I want to discuss a big business deal with you, Elder. Chu Tian had originally intended to give gifts to Hierarchy, but midway, he changed his mind, deciding to turn the gift-giving into a business transaction. Or, to be more precise, a scam. Business? Excuse me, Mr. Fat Lapdyke NAC, we elves have never done any business before. For a self-sufficient race like the elves, the term business was very unfamiliar, so Hierarchy had to be cautious and flatly refused. Furthermore, I have no interest in doing business. If you have no interest, then let's not talk about business. May I ask how many elves there are on the continent in total? Hearing Hierarchy refuse his proposal, Chu Tian subtly changed the subject. Chu Tian would not easily give up on a big fish like Hierarchy. Although you have no interest, whether there's business or not is not up to you. A business novice like Hierarchy could not compare with Chu Tian, so she naturally said, about 4 million people. As far as I know, women make up the majority of the elf race, perhaps even 3.5 million people, correct? Chu Tian began to subtly trap Hierarchy, but the elf elder didn't detect Chu Tian's sinister intentions. No. It's 3.5 million. Men are very few in our elf race, only 500,000. Then, among these 3.5 million women, how many are female slaves? Chu Tian casually brought up such a sensitive topic, then slowly added while stroking his magic ring, "Don't be angry. I'm just asking casually." She was furious, but in her heart, Chu Tian, who could cure the Dragon Emperor, must be a person of strength. Moreover, their current location was a Ko-Lap mountain, the dragon clan's lair, so she suppressed her burning anger and coldly replied, 500,000. After the destruction of the elf kingdom, the most renowned elf beauties on the continent lost their great protection, naturally becoming prey for humans and other races. The number of elf female slaves had reached a terrifying figure. Haha. Chu Tian laughed happily, seemingly very satisfied with this number. Now, how many elves are willing to obey His Majesty the Elf King? Although the elf kingdom could no longer be maintained, the elf royal family still existed, and the position of elf king was still inherited, maintaining great influence over the elf race. This influence was weakening day by day. In fact, at this moment, the elf king was only surrounded by a few elders like she, and about 100,000 ordinary elves, most of whom were old, weak, and sick. Based on this, they couldn't even form their own army. That's why she had sought the Dragon Emperor's help for the elf race's restoration. Fat Lapdyke Nac, I warn you, you are probing into the secrets of our elf race. She finally lost her temper. A green light appeared in her hand, and a verdant longbow was aimed straight at Chu Tian. A short arrow on the bowstring was straining, ready to be loosed. Chu Tian's eyes immediately narrowed into slits, radiating a cold light, because the arrow in she's hand was exactly like the short arrow that had ambushed him before. Haha, I only came here for business, not to fight. Chu Tian quickly suppressed his pounding heart, then reverted to his charlatan demeanor, because at this moment, there was something more important. He calmly pushed aside the bow and arrow in front of him, smiled, and said, "How about I give you 50,000 elf female slaves?" Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Ko-Lap Mountain Chapter 55, The Elf, Part 2. Based on beauty, the price of elf female slaves on the continent ranged from 10 gold coins to over 10,000 gold coins. The 50,000 people Chu Tian spoke of were only those elves whose beauty had long faded. If one truly wanted to buy them, a few gold coins would suffice. Therefore, the cost of buying 50,000 female slaves was nothing for someone like Chu Tian, with an annual income of over 10 million gold coins. Although this small amount of money was negligible for Chu Tian, for the elf race, the meaning was different. Elves mostly lived deep in the forests, with a few living by the sea. In this situation, she, who had lived for several hundred years, had never actually seen so much money. "Mr. Fat Lapdyke Nac, is what you say true?" She hastily put away her bow, asking Chu Tian suspiciously, "You will really give me 50,000 elf female slaves?" Praise the goddess of life. "Of course it's true." The goddess said, "Lying desecrates the soul of every human being." Again, a righteous and dignified demeanor, again a casual remark attributed to the goddess, but Chu Tian had struck she's weak point. "I can't guarantee they are the most beautiful, but I can guarantee they are the strongest." What was the elf race's greatest wish? Restoration of their kingdom. And what did restoration require? An army. But the elf king, who needed an army most, only had 100,000 old, weak, and sick subordinates. Thus, Chu Tian's proposal was nothing short of rekindling hope for the elf race's restoration. The elf race's lifespan could reach several hundred, even over 1,000 years. But for elf female slaves, once they passed 500 years old, their beauty faded, and they were no longer valuable. Chu Tian was giving she these worthless female slaves. Although they no longer possessed the beauty they could be proud of, 500 years old for an elf was merely entering middle age. 50,000 strong elves, coupled with the elf race's innate talent for archery, Chu Tian had almost given the elf king 50,000 ironclad warriors. But Chu Tian was not yet satisfied. 5,000 elite soldiers were still not enough. Haha, of course, if you need it, an additional 50,000 sets of armor and weapons can also be provided. Elf female slaves could be bought with money, and as for equipment, the Fan Mat 2 family, specializing in arms dealing, could solve that problem. Fat Fat lap dyke nac, she was so excited she stammered, her face flushed from agitation, but she hadn't lost her reason. The colossal price Chu Tian was paying surely meant he expected something significant in return. How much must our elf race pay? Chu Tian deeply admired she. So many things, and she wasn't even fainting from shock. It seemed he had to add a little more benefit. What I want, I'll say later. For now, I haven't finished speaking. How about an additional 8th grade magical beast? This time, Chu Tian had hit their core assets. 7th grade magical beasts were high-grade items strictly controlled by military affairs on the continent, very difficult to acquire. Even buying them cheaply from the Fan Mat 2 family would probably cost 5 million gold coins. Moreover, it was a case of having money but being unable to buy. Crack the short arrow in she's hand suddenly snapped in her excitement. Although His Majesty the Elf King is not here. However, as long as you guarantee His Majesty's royal position, I can accept anything. She had finally fallen for Chu Tian's bait. The elf race was not without powerhouses, several elders were high-level powerhouses, and the Elf King himself was a 9th grade Dark Knight archery god. But relying solely on these powerhouses might defeat an army, but could it govern a nation? Therefore, what they lacked most were ordinary warriors. At this moment, Chu Tian offered 50,000 elf female warriors, fully equipped, plus an 8th grade magical beast. With these things, the restoration of the elf kingdom was no longer just a dream. Chu Tian showed no reaction, because he was stunned by she's phrase accept anything. In his initial plan, Chu Tian had not expected the elf race to pay such a high price for restoration, giving Chu Tian anything he wanted, except for ensuring the Elf King's position. So he felt that what he initially wanted was a bit too little. What exactly must we repay? She looked at Chu Tian, who remained silent for a long time, fearing he would regret it. She gritted her teeth and gave up her own interests. If the Elf Kingdom successfully restores, then we can become a vassal state of Kaisa. She believed that the benefits Chu Tian offered the elf race were enough to destroy a small country. Such a multitude of things could not possibly be acquired by Chu Tian alone. It was likely that Lo Dik Tam had Chu Tian deliver these to the elf race and supported the elf restoration. This was most likely the Kaisa Empire's intention. Therefore, she proposed the elf race becoming a vassal state of Kaisa, which was almost tantamount to selling their country, in exchange for Kaisa's support. But regrettably, she completely misunderstood Chu Tian's thoughts. 50,000 elf female slaves and equipment, plus an 8th grade magical beast, although very expensive, Chu Tian could still afford them, and the one who wanted to do business with the elf race was only Chu Tian himself. When she brought out the bottle of life essence, Chu Tian already had an initial plan. Although the life essence was useless to the Dragon Emperor, what about Ndong and I? What about Babak Tat? Initially, Chu Tian only wanted to buy a few bottles of life essence from the elf race to restore his teacher and Babak Tat's bodies. But unexpectedly, she didn't know the extent of Chu Tian's immense wealth and misunderstood that only the Kaisa Empire could provide these things. Therefore, he elevated his private business transaction into a national political affair. Chu Tian understood that she misunderstood him as representing the empire in a business deal, but this misunderstanding was perfect, so perfect that he came up with a new plan. Praising the goddess of life. Marquis Fat Lap Dyke Nac's opportunity to earn merit had arrived. Becoming a vassal state of Kaisa is unnecessary. Our country respects the dignity of His Majesty the Elf King. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and began the first political negotiation of his life. Our country only wants the future elf kingdom to form an alliance. Chu Tian speculated on Lo Dik Tam's thoughts. After becoming a vassal state, although it was equivalent to selling the elf race to Kaisa, the price Kaisa would have to pay was huge, taking responsibility for safety, economic support, providing defense, training talents. With so many concurrent conditions, Lo Dik Tam might not agree. After all, Kaisa's energy was already fully invested in dealing with Loi Tu, and they basically had no strength left to manage the elf race's affairs. Therefore, an alliance was the best option, and also the most likely choice for Lo Dik Tamtha. She might be a loyal elder, but she was absolutely not an excellent diplomat. She hadn't originally thought of the beneficial relationships involved, but simply appreciated Kaisa's selfless assistance. Thank you, all of us in the elf race will be grateful to the great Kaisa Empire. Don't thank me so quickly, I still have conditions I haven't mentioned. A mere alliance was not enough to satisfy So Tian's appetite. How could such a small achievement earn him a hefty reward from Lo Dik Tamtha? Our country requires the elf kingdom to be built south of the Loi Tu Empire. If our country and Loi Tu go to war in the future, the elf race must coordinate with us, attacking Loi Tu from both north and south. This? She hesitated a little. Building the kingdom south of Loi Tu was not a problem, but participating in the war between Loi Tu and Kaisa, this was something she couldn't help but consider. After all, Loi Tu was one of the continent's powerful nations. Its immense strength was absolutely not something the elf race could contend with. Book 2, The Medical Conference at a Kolap Mountain Chapter 56, The Elf, Part 3. So Tian understood she's worries, so he emphasized, haha, of course, the Loi Tu Empire won't know that our two countries are allied. So you don't need to worry about retaliation. If we participate in the war against Loi Tu, what about the safety of our elf race? She was a little swayed. Ultimately, the restoration of their kingdom was the elf race's lifelong dream. Even if it meant risking offending the Loi Tu Empire, they had to take a gamble. If you participate in the war, our country will guarantee your safety. So Tian continued to entice she, but this statement was completely meaningless. Once Loi Tu truly wanted to destroy the future elf kingdom in the south, Kaisa would practically have no way to assist them. The Loi Tu Empire's territory stretched for 10,000 li, bordered by the sea to the east, only a narrow strip of land to the south, and the territory of the Kusite kingdom to the west. In this situation, for Kaisa to rescue the elf race, they would only be able to mobilize the Longjing army stationed on the eastern sea to arrive in time, but currently, the Longjing army was being held back by the Tian High Kingdom. She also knew So Tian's words were empty promises, but the allure of the words restoration of the kingdom was truly too great for her. All right. We accept. As a capable assistant to the Elf King, she understood her monarch very well. Even if the Elf King were here, he would fully agree to the conditions So Tian put forth, so her acceptance of this condition also meant the entire elf race had accepted. Haha, the most important matter has been settled, so let's talk about something else. So Tian continued to exert pressure to gain more benefits from the elf race. Merely adding a little trouble for the Loi Tu Empire was not enough. Everyone knows that elves are the most talented archers on the continent. I imagine His Majesty the Elf King must have quite a few high-level archers under his command, correct? That's right, we have at least 5,000 third-grade black iron archers. She replied proudly. She truly could be proud, the elf race had a natural sensitivity to archery. Many were even born with the skill level of a first-grade archer apprentice. You want our archers to join the Kaisa army? She misunderstood So Tian's intention again, frowning. We can agree to this condition, but it seems Kaisa's military law doesn't allow foreigners to join your army, does it? No. I don't want you to join the Kaisa army, but rather hope the elf race provides our country with excellent archery instructors. The phrase Invincible Kaisa Iron Cavalry symbolized the highest honor of Kaisa soldiers, and also represented formidable strength. But So Tian was somewhat dissatisfied with Kaisa's cavalry. In So Tian's impression, only the invincible heavy cavalry that swept across Asia and Europe on Earth, with their long-range shooting and fearless fighting, were the most perfect cavalry. Kaisa's third-grade unicorn warhorses, though far superior to horses on Earth, were controlled by riders who were too poor, so poor that they only knew how to exploit the unicorn's magic immunity to charge directly into the enemy, and then rely on battle chi to fight to the death. Although So Tian's military knowledge was not high, he still had his own creativity, combining heavy cavalry and archer cavalry into one. On Earth, merging the advantages of archer cavalry and heavy cavalry was very difficult due to the limited carrying capacity of warhorses. But on the Huan Thursday continent, this was not an issue. With the warhorse's physique and strength, what was a little heavy armor? Therefore, Chu Tian requested the elf race to provide archery instructors. As long as he returned and presented this idea to Lo Dik Tamda, with His Majesty's grand strategy, he would naturally recognize its value. At that time, wouldn't the reward for a creative person like him be substantial? He or she naturally didn't understand Chu Tian's grand ambition to earn merit, but she generously accepted this proposal. The elf race lacked everything except for excellent archers. They had an abundance of those. With the official matters settled, Chu Tian began his personal business. Elder he or she, the alliance treaty between our two nations has been decided, however, I still have a small personal matter. Whatever it is, just say it. As long as it can be done, I will certainly do my best. In he or she's eyes, Chu Tian had become the hope for the elf race's resurgence, so she would naturally respond wholeheartedly to his personal request. I wonder if you still have any life essence. I'd like to buy a few bottles. Chu Tian said calmly, his expression as serene as if he were buying pigs in the market, completely oblivious to the preciousness of life essence. Of course, the price is up to you. Excuse me, Mr. Fat Lap Dyke NAC, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. He or she looked helplessly at Chu Tian, clasped her hands, and said, the bottle of life essence given to the Dragon Emperor required us to mobilize the entire strength of our race to create. And our elf race now needs to prepare for the restoration of our kingdom, so we truly no longer have the energy. Chu Tian secretly cursed himself. Why did he contribute so much to the elf race's restoration, only for them to no longer have the energy to create life essence? But Chu Tian still didn't give up. If he could get the first bottle, then there would be a second. Haha, although we provided many things, the restoration of your kingdom still requires quite a few gold coins, doesn't it? He or she nodded immediately. Kaisa had provided soldiers and weapons, but the logistics problem still needed to be resolved by the elf race. After all, war was the most money-burning game. How about one bottle of life essence for 100,000 gold coins? I only need to buy 3 bottles, then you will have enough money to launch a small-scale war, won't you? 100,000 gold coins? He or she's eyes widened, looking at Chu Tian. The elf race had lived deep in the forest for hundreds of years, so she had never seen so many gold coins before. Do you really have 100,000 gold coins? Praising the goddess of life. Was 100,000 gold coins a lot? Chu Tian felt pity for them, calculating the remaining gold coins in his magic ring. Besides the valuable gifts, he also had some private funds. He casually pulled out a purple magic crystal card with a minimum value of 10,000 gold coins, then Chu Tian casually handed it to he or she. This is 10,000 gold coins, consider it a deposit. He or she swallowed hard, then carefully put the crystal card away, looking at Chu Tian and saying with certainty, in at most 1 year, I will bring 2 bottles of life essence to Bong Boy City. Haha, no need to rush, I don't need it urgently. And Dong and I had waited 30 years, could he not wait a few more months? As for Ba Bak Tat, perhaps the Dragon Emperor could lift his seal tomorrow. So Chu Tian was not at all in a hurry for the life essence. He could let the elf race create it slowly. If they rushed and the quality wasn't good, that wouldn't be ideal. He or she also understood what Chu Tian was worried about. Rest assured, your 2 bottles of life essence will absolutely be no less effective than the Dragon Emperor's. That's good. If so, I have nothing else to discuss. Chu Tian bowed slightly to he or she and said, then I'm leaving. The Dragon Emperor is summoning me tomorrow. Leaving he or she's place, Chu Tian smiled all the way back to his residence. Not only had he cured the Dragon Emperor, but he had also secured an ally for Lo Dik Tamda. Surely his reward would be substantial? Praising the goddess of life. He wondered what other surprises the Dragon Emperor would have for him tomorrow.